Hey hunters! Welcome back to Anime Fanfic Corner, the only place on YouTube dedicated exclusively to Hunter x Hunter audiobooks. Today we've got another awesome Hunter x Hunter fanfic for you, crossing As Illumi In HxH. It's Saturday, so here's your bonus mini fanfic with 25 chapters. Enjoy! As always, huge shout out to the author, their info's in the description, so make sure to check them out and show some love. If you're new here and love xszj as much as I do, consider dropping a like, subscribing, and officially becoming a hunter. I had to dig through a Chinese website to find this. So you know. To keep your immersion smooth, I only include intros and outros at the start and end of playlists, so you can enjoy the story with no interruptions. Also, don't sleep on the community tab. I actually post stuff there, not just sub-begging like certain audiobook channels. Embarrassed smiley face emoji. Alright, let's dive into it. Peace and love y'all. Red heart emoji. Chapter 1. Before everything. July 31st 2008. Beginning. On April 2nd 1981, I was born into a happy family. On August 31st 1999, I left home for the first time to study in a strange city. On July 16, 2006, I graduated from university and began my fulfilling career as a civil servant. On July 31, 2008, 9 days before the opening of the Beijing Olympics, I died in a car accident. Then, I time traveled. The accident was painful, but at least it ended quickly. 27 was young to die. There were many things I hadn't done, but I was content with my life. I had no regrets. Well, except one. I couldn't let go of my family. Earlier that year, my mother passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. Thankfully, it was quick and not too painful. When someone dies, it's over for them. It's the ones left behind who suffer. I always loved horror and disaster films, but seeing my father cry, that was more terrifying than anything I'd ever watched. He lost his wife in middle age. At least he still had me, until I died 4 months later. So, when two half-hearted managers appeared in front of me, I didn't hesitate to accept their Illumi mission. Here's the gist: the 12-year-old Illumi Zoldyck had run off with a time traveler, and the Hunter x Hunter world needed Illumi. Without him, the fictional universe would collapse. They showed me scenes of the world falling apart, images too horrific to describe. Fine. I'll be Illumi. But in exchange, I want my mother resurrected. And I want everyone to forget I ever existed. They deliberated, then agreed, on one condition: I had to complete the mission. If I failed, the contract would be void, my mother would vanish again, and I'd die for real. Typical shady business. I've read my share of time travel stories. Usually, the traveler gets blessings from the gods, protagonist privileges, and plot armor. Me? Clearly, my author's a sadist. Zhao Jun's fate was better than mine. At least she had the Han dynasty behind her. And me? I was a 27-year-old woman, a junior civil servant. I liked reading, music, and sleep. I was good at English, office software, and filing. Terrible at sports. I always failed the standing long jump, even after helping my teacher clean windows for a whole semester. If I walked past a court, a stray ball would always find me. In short, nothing about me guaranteed survival in the hunter world. And now I was Illumi Zoldyck, top assassin of his generation, even if only 5 Zoldycks had appeared before the manga went on hiatus. At the start of the story, Illumi could take down Killua, a main character. He had ties to Hisoka and the Phantom Troop, and was constantly taking missions, meaning, killing people. Zhao Jun just needed to look pretty and secure political alliances. I had to be Illumi in a brutal, survival of the fittest universe and ensure the plot stayed on track. Definitely a sadist author. So, I made demands: implant all Hunter x Hunter anime, manga, and relevant fan lore into my brain. Also, Let me experience Illumi's memories, not just access them. Accessing memories is like reading someone's diary, secondhand. Experiencing them means living it, the training, the injuries, the missions, the kills, firsthand. Thankfully, I knew myself. I had them restore my own memories afterward, or I'd have lost my mind. Trading away irrelevant memories for hunter data was a small price to pay. Most time-traveling protagonists can recite ancient poetry and quote classics. Me? I can't remember a single verse. None of that matters. As long as my mother can live and my family can be happy, I'm already dead anyway. Consider this a bonus round. I will complete this mission, whatever it takes. Before everything April 2nd 1987 rebirth. I closed my eyes in the void. When I opened them, I was standing in a stone room. Instantly, I knew, Illumi's room, Zoldyck Estate, April 2nd 1987. Perfect. One birthday to remember. My mental storage is limited. I leaned into the mirror. I looked good. Honestly, I looked like a clueless lolly. Yes, if I'm going to fool everyone else, I have to fool myself first. From now on, I am Illumi. At 12, I was already a silent little lolly, no, a crossdresser. That memory was blood red. I don't want to relive it. But as they say, every effect has a cause. A child raised for 12 years doesn't run off without reason. This works in my favor. I can act emotionless. Any minor slip-ups? Blame the trauma. So, what now? Should I say hello to the family? Illumi probably doesn't want to see them. Should I start the plot? It's 1987. There are still 12 years before Gon takes the hunter exam. How do I pass the time? Then again, 12 years can fly by. I remember thinking I was just in junior high yesterday, skipping class to game, and suddenly I was 30. God of the hunter world, please help me complete this mission. You don't want to see your world collapse, right? Forget it. If gods existed, it wouldn't be my turn. First priority, training. Surviving comes before everything else. If the Zoldyck send Illumi out tomorrow and I die from athletic incompetence, I'll go down in history, for the worst reason. I doubt this body is Illumi's original. If he ran off, the managers probably recreated it using his DNA. It's powerful, I can scale walls and leap rooftops, but I'm a loser in it. My reflex is to freeze when punched, not dodge or counter. Honestly, I'd rather bury my head like an ostrich. Too bad those don't exist here. I hoped I'd inherit Illumi's willpower. Nope. A nail pierced my arm, I flinched, turned my head, winced. And it didn't even hurt that much. Pathetic. Depressed, I used nails to fix my face into place, forcing a paralyzed expression during training to avoid exposure. It felt like dental anesthetic. Oddly fascinating. The rest of 1987 passed in training. With a frozen face, I trained nonstop until collapse. Someone would always drag me off for recovery. In my past life, I wasn't afraid of pain or death, just injury. Wounds meant long healing periods, public exposure, and potential scars. I wasn't good looking to begin with, scars would doom any chance of marriage. Thank God the Zoldyck family has a Nen user who can heal, like the breath of Archangel. Honestly, that's how it should be. Chapter 2. This family is also a group of assassins. In the underworld, injuries are inevitable. Yet, the entire family is so fair and tender that they could star in a cosmetics commercial. Please ignore Grandpa and Great-Grandpa. There must be a conspiracy, or rather, an inside story. So, I can train it until it breaks without any worries because I can always fix it. But the process is, a bit rough. After the first repair, I learned my lesson and disabled my voice function. What's even funnier than my own expressionless face is that after 2 months in this world, I haven't seen any of my family members except Dodo, who hasn't become the manager yet, and Lunixi, the restorer. Of course, this is due to my own personal factors. I would go to training when I woke up and would be dragged away for repairs. During the repair process, I would fall asleep. Yes, it only took 2 months for me to fall asleep during the repair process. It's amazing, isn't it? Ha ha ha. When I woke up, I was already in my own bed, with a warm or cold breakfast, lunch, or dinner by the bed. After eating, I would take a shower and then go to training. Even so, there are still many ways to meet. Illumi was left alone for 2 months. Yeah, actually, the family was quite indulgent towards Illumi. Of course, we cannot rule out the fact that we do not know how to get along with a child who suddenly has facial paralysis. Killua was born on July 7, 1987. This is what the Hunter history chronology, unfinished, in my mind reads. I considered it but decided not to go. Although I was a little interested in the baby, it was Killua after all. In the future, Killua would be so scared of me that his whole body would become stiff when he saw me. It was best not to have too many feelings for him, so I naturally continued to train. As a result, during the repair, Lunixi suddenly said, "Master Illumi, your mother gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, 3 days ago. For the nth time, I am grateful for my facial paralysis. Maybe this is the legendary Aluka, a girl. Will something happen in the future? No wonder my mother dressed Kalito up as a doll. I don't remember being treated like this. Let's go and have a look." There were only the butler race and an unknown nanny in the baby room, which was just right. Although I would have to meet my father and mother sooner or later, I was still holding an ostrich mentality and trying to delay it as much as possible. My parents in my previous life, I came to this world for them. So, they are my parents. Silva and Kikyo are my father and mother. It may change in the future, but it has to be like this for now. I was an only child in my previous life, and suddenly I have brothers and sisters, which feels very strange. By the way, I still have a 5-year-old stepbrother whom I haven't met yet, but I met Killua and Aluka first. Is this the power of the protagonist? Legend has it that babies look like little monkeys when they are born, but it seems that they have grown up and are white and tender after a few days. Killua has silver hair and Aluka has black hair. This is the only way I can tell them apart. It's not that I can't pick him up like a kitten and take a look, but now I don't think of Killua as my younger brother. I feel embarrassed when I think about picking up the protagonist to see if they are boys or girls. Author's note: please imagine the scene where Illumi picks up any one of the 4 protagonists and pulls down their pants to take a look. I've already seen it, so I might as well have some fun. Aiming at Killua, Momo, pinch, pinch. This kid is still sleeping. It's a pity that there is no such thing as zodiac signs in this world, otherwise, this little guy must be a pig. After a lot of trouble, no one paid any attention to me. I thought someone would yell, "Ah, Illumi-sama, what are you going to do to Killua-sama?" And then my mother would rush out with tears in her eyes and say, "Illumi-sama dares to hurt Killua," and then kick me out of the house, but it seems that the plot has not reached that level yet. TSK, boring. I actually feel bored because I'm not misunderstood. Hasn't it happened that I've become a pervert without realizing it? No wonder I will get along so well with Hisoka in the future. Before everything January 7, 1988 first time. I think my training is not enough, but apparently, someone thinks it is enough. The evidence is the work assignment on the table. I wonder if we are assassins or white-collar workers. It was a very simple job. There were no nen users among the bodyguards, and they only needed to kill the target. No wonder the reward was only 20 million. The purchasing power of the currency in the hunter world was relatively low, and 20 million jenny was only equivalent to about 1.1 million Chinese yuan in the previous life. It suits me, after all. This is my first time killing someone. If the situation is too complicated, who knows what will happen? My father and the others should think so too, right? I flew to the destination and booked a hotel for 3 days. My family provided the fake ID card, so I didn't have to worry about it. This is the benefit of chain operation. What am I thinking? I have the physical strength of Illumi, and my reaction speed is not much different after training, but what about my heart? I have been an Illumi for less than a year, and I was a law-abiding citizen for 27 years in my previous life. My major in college was law. The XszJ of Zoldyck is absolutely a unique skill. Okay, this joke is not funny. But really, with my speed, using the XszJ, it is easy to sneak into the target's room. I wanted to take a nap while waiting for the target to come back, but I thought about it and gave up. Besides, I really can't sleep. Compared to the anxiety before the attack, the actual killing was actually easy. After the target entered the door, I pinned him down with a nail, closed the door, and took out his heart with my palms. The bloody hands were slippery and uncomfortable, and the beating heart made me sick. I took a deep breath, forced myself not to look away, and crushed the heart with force. Illumi's heart should be stronger than Kilowiz's. There is no reason why I can't do what that kid can do. Covered in blood, the job was not over yet, so I squatted down and started to dismember the body. I didn't want to do it, but a short pain is worse than a long one. My mind went blank, and a thought suddenly popped up. In my previous life, I liked to eat whole young chickens. At first, I didn't know where to start, but after a few times, I could peel the skin and remove the bones expertly. After it was over, the room looked like a horror movie set, with enough room for a movie of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and some leftovers. Straight back to the hotel. I wasn't in the right mental state to do anything else. I still overestimated myself. Everything was normal on the way back to the hotel. Because there was blood on my body, I was careful not to be seen. I returned to the room and closed the door. I didn't have time to get weak in the knees and rushed to the bathroom to vomit. In the midst of confusion, what I was thinking was that it was a good thing that Illumi's hair just reached her shoulders. If it was longer, it would get on her hair. Then I laughed for some unknown reason and continued to vomit. I finally vomited everything out, leaned on the toilet to rest for a while, got up, brushed my teeth, washed my face, changed clothes, and went out to eat. The midnight snacks in star-rated hotels are very good, at least they look beautiful. If I am unlucky enough to meet them, I will be like Jubaji eating ginseng fruit. The cute little snack will probably make me cry. The food on the table was cleared away, the bill was paid, and I went back to the room, where I continued to vomit while holding the toilet. Well, the cute little snack would not only cry, but he would probably commit suicide to apologize. After vomiting, I took a break, brushed my teeth, washed my face, changed clothes, and went out to eat at another restaurant. Although the food still tasted bad, at least it stayed in my stomach. After returning to the room, I lay on the bed and grinned at the ceiling. It was great. I only vomited twice. My mental quality was still quite strong. I was mentally prepared for a long battle and even thought about the possibility of suffering from anorexia. It seems that I did overestimate myself, but I also underestimated myself. Then, let's go and do that thing. Last year, Greed Island was released, priced at 5.8 billion jenny, and it was still in short supply. In fact, the word in short supply is completely unable to describe the level of madness at that time. Those games in the past life were nothing, and it was really awesome to dare to limit the sale to 100 copies. It's true that the price was set at 5.8 billion, but this kind of thing is just like the Spring Festival train tickets. Once it reaches the hands of ticket scalpers, the price will double. I even forgot which city I lived in my previous life, but the resentment about the Spring Festival train tickets remained. Back to the point, this year, Batara will offer a reward for Greed Island software and clearance progress. It is best to get a set now, otherwise, it will become increasingly difficult to get. If you start now, because it has not been long, the intelligence network at home can still find a few buyers. I don't have 5.8 billion, but to borrow Spider's words, we are thieves, so of course we rob it. In the previous life, I studied law and stole. Chapter 3. The severity of crimes varies. Theft is serious, but robbery is graver due to the potential for personal injury. I still vaguely recall the days spent memorizing legal codes. Now, being on the other side of the law feels surreal. I've killed people, thus, robbery should be trivial. But killing was a necessity, robbing Greed Island wasn't. I can't refuse assignments, but I could have ignored Greed Island. This theft was entirely my decision. I can't clear the game before Gone and the others, but I can collect cards until only one remains, then claim the reward after they finish. Even without a reward, the cards themselves are fascinating. Fountain of Wine, If TV, reciprocating postcards to the dead, any test paper, life picture book, waste utilization room, 3D camera, and made panda. I'm eager to try them. With the book of improvisation, I wouldn't need to buy books anymore. And the quick foreign language school, why didn't I have something like that during my school days? But the one I desire most is probably the memory photo studio. Robbery is easier than murder, obviously. I disguise myself, sneak in, and if discovered, I use a needle to paralyze myself. Eventually, I find the real culprit, manipulate him with a needle to hand over the game, and then leave. I fantasize about playing the role of a thief, knocking on the door, smiling, and saying, "Hello, robbery," to the cute girl who answers. But with my luck, she'd probably hear, "Hello, big sister," and then beat me up. In the end, my misfortune didn't result in a beating, but it did manifest in Greed Island's 10-day save limit. Why even play it? I threw the software away in frustration. And then picked it up again. Even without saving, exploring strategies is worthwhile. If I decide not to play, I can still sell it, it's worth at least 17 billion. Subsequent tasks varied in difficulty, with rewards ranging from 70 million to 350 million. I completed them without issue. I feared I'd vomit again post-mission, but I was fine. Perhaps that initial, gruesome kill served as effective shock therapy. When not working, I train. I've realized that assassination doesn't require immense strength, just stealth and patience. Still, strength is beneficial. Beyond training, I have little else to do. July's first assignment was to eliminate an entire household, every living being in the target building. The house was a small villa with a backyard well. Before leaving, I grabbed some seasonings from the kitchen and sprinkled them into the well upon arrival. 3 days later, everyone inside was dead. I returned to ensure completion and killed the surviving parrot and rabbit. It was my first time exterminating an entire family. I expected psychological turmoil akin to my first kill, but I seem to have adapted. Perhaps that's a good thing. I returned home via airship and entered as usual. I can now open 5 doors, but typically use just one. This time, I noticed a small figure under a tree. Initially, I thought it was Mike, but remembered he wouldn't become my watchdog until next year. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was my younger brother, Maluki, whom I hadn't met yet. The little guy was curled up, crying. Illumi's memories of him are sparse. His mother insisted on working during pregnancy, a tragic tale, resulting in Maluki being born with a weak constitution. Despite numerous tonics from the Zoldyck family, he survived but became a chubby boy with poor health and bleak prospects. The family had low expectations and largely neglected him. Another unfortunate child. I intended to rest but found myself sitting beside Maluki, gently patting his back. Startled, he looked up at me. At 6, he wasn't yet the squinty-eyed figure he'd become. His large eyes held surprise and a hint of fear. "He's afraid of me." Understandable, given my behavior this year. I sighed, pulled out a tissue, and wiped his face. Unexpectedly, he threw himself into my arms, smearing tears and snot on my clothes. In my past life, I would have recoiled or pushed him away. Now, I don't mind stains. Who knows what blood, flesh, or brain matter already adorns this outfit? I've buried myself before. If a job required it, I'd squat in a manure pit, for an extra fee, of course. This is nothing. I held him, amused, until he stopped crying but continued clinging to me. So, I picked him up and carried him back. Previously, I feared children, first their mischief, then the possibility of harming them. Over time, I grew fond of them. Perhaps it's age? My grandmother had 3 children by 27. Maybe I've inherited this affection. Thankfully, it doesn't interfere with my work. Maluki was compliant during his bath and clothing change, though he kept clutching my clothes, making the process cumbersome. Finally, clean and fragrant, he lay wrapped in a quilt. I was wet and dirty, eager to change, but he wouldn't let go and softly asked, "Brother, can you stay until I fall asleep?" Looking into his tearful puppy eyes, I felt that refusing would be a sin. I agreed, pulled up a chair, and sat down. Internally, I mused, this adorable boy will grow into a perverted otaku. The world is truly ironic. It's disheartening that I can't prevent it, like watching a rose bloom into a misshapen gourd. Because of Maluki, I was in high spirits all night. It wasn't until bedtime that I realized this was the first time I'd spoken in the hunter world. I went to bed happy but woke up dismayed. I stared at the stain on the quilt, then at the ceiling. I know I'm male now, I've used the toilet and showered countless times. Must I be reminded again? The Zoldyck family's intelligence network is vast. The elders are so well informed, it's as if they possess clairvoyance and superhearing. Perhaps my mother does. If today's staple is red bean rice, I swear I'll flip the table. 1988 was a year of many firsts for me. My first kill involved shock therapy, resulting in vomiting. My first robbery lacked finesse, and the loot was useless. My first family extermination taught me that kitchens are dangerous, especially ours. My first spoken word. My first. Let's forget that. Before everything November 4th 1988 family and friends. Having spoken to Maluki, it was time to reconcile with my family. For me, it was adaptation training under the guise of facial paralysis. To them, it was a teenager's rebellion. I pondered the best approach and settled on simplicity. Dinner is family time at the Zoldyck estate. Previously, I'd been absent due to erratic training schedules. Better to act now than delay. I entered the dining room at dinner, greeted them expressionlessly, father, mother, grandfather, great-grandfather, Maluki. I'm starting, then sat and began eating. A book I read once said that when a child argues with their family, reconciliation is simple, just throw their dirty clothes at home, and everything returns to normal. While my mother didn't have to wash my clothes, the sentiment was similar. My parents were momentarily speechless. My father commented, "Illumi has done well recently." I replied, "Thank you, father. My training is still insufficient." Silence followed. Everyone exchanged glances and focused on eating. After dinner, my father summoned me to his room to assign my next task. I thought assignments grew from my desk. After that, although we still didn't get along well. Chapter 4. At least my family members don't avoid me like they used to. They've even started assigning tasks that require collaboration with them. My father seems a bit cautious around me, likely due to Illumi's facial paralysis following that incident. He wasn't expressive before, but now his face is utterly devoid of emotion. On top of that, I've been training relentlessly all year and have been hospitalized multiple times, barely clinging to life. My father and the others probably feel some guilt. After all, Considering how casually he set a trap for Killua in the original Hunter x Hunter, his behavior now is uncharacteristically gentle. I wonder if there's a past event they learned from. Maybe that's why he plans to use a softer approach with Killua later. But honestly, none of this is necessary. First, I'm not the original Illumi. Second, even if I were, judging by my personality, I don't think my father did anything wrong. His methods might be harsh, but I firmly believe no parent is ever entirely wrong. They gave you life, raised you, and endured much for you. Sometimes, a slap is necessary. Of course, I won't go around telling him he did a great job and that his parenting was glorious and correct. A distant, cold relationship suits me fine. It works for now. In October, I took a bodyguard assignment. Yes, sometimes the Zoldyck family takes non-lethal jobs if the pay is good. I worked alongside my father to protect a senator from the Mighty Federation. He used his real name and stayed close to the senator, while I went undercover in the bodyguard team as a bystander. The mission was uneventful and boring, but it paid well, so whatever. When I returned home, my father called me into his study to lecture me on assassins and friends. Apparently, during the mission, I had a few pleasant conversations with a hunter on the team. In the Zoldyck family's eyes, that was a red flag. Underage children with malleable personalities shouldn't be forming attachments. It could be fatal. Timing really is everything. I'm the first to get the Killua treatment. Is this what inheritance looks like? I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm 14 physically, but mentally I'm 41. Add 27 to 14 and you get me. And while I got along with that hunter, it wasn't nearly as deep as my father assumed. When I told him I had no intention of making friends, he didn't believe me. So I asked if there was a contract out on the guy, and if so, I'd be happy to take the job. My father stared at me, probably wondering if I was trying to get details to protect the target or if I was serious. I added, stone-faced, let's say he's worth 300 million. Give me the job for 150 million. I'll give you a 50% discount. Goto, who was standing nearby, almost dropped his teacup. My father awkwardly waved me away. Reading Hunter x Hunter in my past life made me realize, friendship requires qualifications. I've never had them. I was a homebody, died at 27, never had a lover or real friends. That might sound sad, but I was content. My family loved me unconditionally. I never faced hardship, so I thought the world was beautiful. I smiled at everyone, they smiled back, and it became a feedback loop of idealism. I had friends, sure, but my definition probably differs from Hunter x Hunter's. I sorted friends into categories: those who shopped with me, ate with me, read books, watched DVDs, hiked, crafted, gossiped, exchanged dumb jokes every few days, or who I could ask for help once a year and not be judged. But in my mind, everyone had a price. For 100 million, I could cut ties with some friends. To restore my grandparents' health to what it was at age 50, I'd give up most of them. To bring my mother back to life, I'd probably kill them, let alone stop speaking to them. That might sound heartless, but I believe most people would make the same choices under those circumstances. I remember reading a passage once that stuck with me. There is no such thing as a friend you can trust absolutely. Therefore, there is no need to feel sad about betrayal. People don't live in the food chain of life, but in the food chain of gains and losses. Everyone, regardless of gender, age, or status, has temptations they can't resist and pressures they can't endure. Any normal person can betray a friend, a lover, even family, given the right conditions. So forget trustworthy or untrustworthy friends. There are only two kinds: those who don't care if you betray them, and those who will seek revenge. I applauded that quote when I first read it. My family is part of that logic too. Why do I trust them so much? Because in my heart, family always ranks higher than friends. and I believe they think the same way. But why did I develop this view of friendship? In my previous life, I wasn't very busy, so I often pondered this. After reflecting many times, I think it started in childhood. I started school too early, was too academically ahead, and socially awkward, so I didn't get along well with peers. One kid walked to and from school with me every day, so I naturally thought we were friends. Then in junior high, I made the mistake of writing a diary and letting people know about it. One day, I returned from the bathroom to find that friend reading my diary aloud to the class. Looking back, what did he gain? No fame, no reward. He just didn't value our friendship. Ah, childhood drama, melodramatic and pointless. Who really remembers those years in detail? I've even forgotten that guy's name and face. I didn't value friendship simply because I grew used to not having it, and I liked it that way. Living alone for 2 years in my past life, I thought, this is great. No one to bother me. My family disagreed, of course. In that life, I equated dependence with weakness. I don't need others. I can survive alone. I believed that, and I took pride in it. If you expect something good from someone, you must give them something equally good in return. There's no such thing as getting a magical papaya in exchange for a cheap romance novel, unless that papaya grants immortality. So yes, the me who could walk away from friendships at a moment's notice was never fit to have them. In this life, born into the Zoldyck family, I have every excuse not to talk about friendship tilde. But here's something curious. In Hunter x Hunter, when characters like Killua, Gon, or Leorio talk about friends, they always assume it's a ride or die bond, a friend you'd risk your life for. The wider definition of friend that includes sketchy acquaintances, drinking buddies, or fair-weather pals? They all ignore it. Even Silva seems to have this narrow definition. Was he once an idealistic youth too? No wonder Killua turned out the way he did. Assassins don't need friends. But they do need partners. And when not partners, potential clients will do. A few days ago, I met someone like that. A very promising client. Our collaboration was smooth, and we got along well, though he did most of the talking. His name? Hisoka. Before everything May 3rd 1989 The paid vacation system. In 1989, the Zoldyck family implemented a paid vacation system. Proposed by Illumi Zoldyck. Okay, when, Chapter 5. When I made that suggestion with my paralyzed face, my father, who was playing with the dog, nearly strangled Mike by accident, and the housekeeper Race's glasses slipped crooked on his face for no apparent reason. I couldn't help it, my mental state was clearly compromised. After completing my last job and returning to the hotel, my right hand suddenly began to tremble. I clutched it with my left hand, only for it to start trembling too. Then my entire body began to shake. I couldn't even stand. I slumped against the wall, trembling uncontrollably. Thankfully, it subsided after 15 minutes, but I was left feeling like I'd just trained for 5 straight hours. It happened again on the way home. I thought I could shake it off with some more training, but instead I collapsed, and Goto had to haul my half-functioning body off for repairs. This can't continue. While lying in bed and waiting for the healing to finish, I reflected. Based on knowledge from my previous life, this seems to be a psychosomatic response, likely caused by extreme stress and psychological resistance to my current lifestyle. Since the healing Nen didn't detect physical damage, it's clear, my subconscious is rebelling against all the killing. I've reached my limit. Damn it. Are you kidding me? How am I supposed to be Illumi Zoldyck if I can't kill? There are still 10 years before the main story even begins. I could already picture the consequences of failure, volcanic belts erupting across the continent, earthquakes, tsunamis, Kookaroo Mountain consumed by magma. My mother disappears from my previous life, and my father suddenly remembers her death, remembers me, only to watch me die again. All because I couldn't handle the job? No way. Once I was repaired, I was too exhausted to get up. Godo waited a few seconds, then silently picked up his lazy young master and carried me off. His arms were surprisingly comfortable. I relaxed against him, idly wondering when he switched to a Princess Carrie. He used to either hoist me like luggage or drag me. If I don't cut my hair soon, he'll be mopping the floor with it. Lying on the bed, I stared blankly at the ceiling. These psychological breakdowns stem from the values I carried over from my previous life. Back then, I was pretty satisfied with my worldview. And in this life, I wouldn't say I have any major issues, except one: I really don't like killing. Honestly, I didn't even know I had this problem until I actually killed someone. Back in school, I was firmly in favor of the death penalty. For the past 2 years in the hunter world, I've clung to my former self's values and personality. Knowing yourself is important. Those memories are what drive me. For someone like me, who doesn't fear pain or death but hates inconvenience, if I lost the drive, I'd probably off myself out of sheer laziness. What a pain. I came up with 2 ways to break through this psychological barrier. Option 1, the brutal path. Take on a few mass extermination jobs, wipe out 3 to 5 families in a short time. Rivers of blood, chaos, and death. If I get through that without a relapse, great. Fast and possibly permanent. But if I do relapse midway, my personality will likely collapse, and I'll almost certainly die. Mission failed, game over. Option 2, the gradual path. Take a break. Stop killing. Try to live like I did in my previous life. Afterward, I might be stable enough to continue without relapsing. Slower, more resource intensive, and it won't fix the root cause, but the success rate is much higher. And if I do fail, I'll still have the option to try again. Classic assassin thinking. Retreat to advance. Very Zoldyck. So, why not start today? I've been running on fumes. In April alone, I took on 3 jobs worth over 500 million total. I could have gone undercover for some, but my grandfather's Zoldyck code of open combat meant I had to charge through the front gates. Bullets and nails flying, blood everywhere. Then, back home for brutal training. I drop by to see Maluki now and then, but no more than once a month, and never for more than an hour. Yet my body still required deep repair after training. That was probably the final straw. So, when I applied for leave, I was stunned when my father actually agreed. The family now had a vacation system. 1 day off per billion Jenny earned. Days could be combined, up to a max of 20. You couldn't take vacation during missions. If the family picked up a job worth 5 billion during your vacation and they were short-staffed, you had to return, and your remaining days would carry over. My classmates from my previous life would probably scream national betrayal over such terms. But hey, if it let me establish a formal vacation policy, it benefited everyone, including me. And I really didn't want to argue with Dad. 20 glorious days off. Now, where to go? In my past life, I might have thrown darts at a world map. Now, I had needles, but they're too accurate. So, I borrowed a spinning top from Maluki, spread out a map, and spun. First spin, York New City. Too dangerous. I want rest, not work. Try again. Second spin, Meteor City. Really? I want peace, not a fight. Next. Third spin, Whale Island. Sounds great, but if I meet gone now, the plot's ruined. Restart. Maluki was yawning. Fourth spin, Town of Lehman. Apple orchards, wheat fields, mountains, rivers, quiet scenery. Only 300 kilometers from Lebanon City. Half-day drive. Perfect vacation spot. Measuring distances with a ruler, Maluki asked what was in Lebanon. The world's largest library and book center, I told him. He scoffed, he's not the academic type. The top he was playing with even had a bust of a pretty girl on it. You're 7, I scolded, confiscating it with a deadpan expression. Maluki screamed. I gave him a cold stare. He sulked in the corner, drawing circles. I felt a little bad. I went over, patted his head, and handed him a piece of candy. He stared at it, then suddenly hugged me. Poor kid. It's not his fault he's a chubby, lazy otaku, it's how the author wrote him. Just as I softened, something felt off. What was he touching? I grabbed the top, and his hand. Caught in the act. Nice try, Maluki. I'll ask Grandpa to double your training load. Before everything May 4th 1989 waiting for someone over coffee. In my past life, I loved books more than anything. I once said that the ideal death would be being crushed under a mountain of them. Obviously, that didn't happen, I died in a car crash. I don't know if the original Illumi liked reading. Probably not. We are always training when not working. So on this trip to Lehman, I plan to buy a house in disguise, rent a car, and binge shop for books in Lebanon City. The average novel here costs just 700 jenny, about 10 yuan in my previous life. Dirt cheap. With tens of billions in my account, the daily interest alone could finance a lifetime of reading. I wanted this vacation to be peaceful, a return to who I was before. So I planned to disguise myself as my past self, a quiet homebody. But there was one small problem. I couldn't remember what I looked like. I suspected this might happen. When I exchanged non-structural memories for hunter-related knowledge, I assumed I'd lose trivia, novels, films, poems. But I didn't. I lost myself. I remember living in a certain city for 9 years. I remember commuting, navigating bus routes. But I can't recall the city's name. I remember binging KFC and gaining weight, then dieting. But I no longer know what KFC even sells. Over the last 2 years, I've slowly adjusted to this memory full of holes. But now, faced with the task of recalling my own face, I realized I couldn't. Chapter 6. After standing stiffly in front of the mirror for half an hour, the first expression I managed was an ugly smile. I can't even remember my name from my previous life. So whose personality and memories am I clinging to? I couldn't bear to think further. I hastily disguised myself as a round-faced girl and went to sign the house purchase contract. The land prices in Lehman are dirt cheap. The house I liked was even cheaper. The previous owner had left a will donating the sale proceeds to a charity fund, under the condition that the house must continue operating as a coffee shop. It was apparently his dying wish to be a cafe owner. The house came fully equipped with espresso machines, grinders, and all the essentials. The only issue? No matter how high grade the beans, his coffee could send people to the hospital. Honestly, someone like that should be sent to my kitchen. I'm so done with poison. The diet research team is constantly racking their brains for new toxins. Before signing the contract, I made a quick visit to inspect the property. It was a 2-story building with furnishings and decor that matched my taste exactly. All the permits were already in place, saving me tons of effort. I only had 20 days of vacation. Every single day was worth 10 billion jenny. Truly, money can't buy time. At least I didn't have to buy a coffee machine. The house had only been vacant for half a month and just needed a quick cleaning. I also had to buy groceries, stock up on books, and maybe hire a staff member. In my past life, this would have taken me a week. Now, I knocked it all out in a single day. Killer training really is top-tier quality education. May 8, 1989, Waiting for One Person Cafe reopened under new ownership. From 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., the turnover was 0. Honestly, I expected that. May is peak farming season, and the first day happened to be a Monday. Plus, the previous owner had once landed a customer in the hospital for 2 months with a cup of coffee. Of course no one was coming. I didn't open the shop to make money anyway, I just wanted to relax. So, I beat some eggs, baked an angel food cake, set the timer, then curled up with a book. Life is beautiful. The boss might be chill, but the staff was not. On the other side of the store, Dina was pacing like a cat on hot bricks. Seeing me idle, she finally came over. "Miss, what do we do? No one's come all day. Should we advertise?" Dina was adorable, hiring her was a great decision. The day before yesterday, I passed by the labor market and saw a girl in her 20s mumbling to herself under a job hunting sign, looking like a walking cloud of despair. Listening in, I heard her muttering, "Ugh, I can't find a job. Why is life so hard? What about next month's rent? I can cook 6 of the 8 major cuisines, why can't I find work?" It looped on repeat. I burst out laughing on the spot. After I calmed down, I offered her a job. At first, Dina didn't believe a 16-year-old could own a cafe. But after seeing my ID and the purchase contract, she skeptically agreed to check it out. Along the way, she kept muttering, "Are the cadres getting younger these days? What if this is a scam? What if she sells me into slavery?" To be honest, my ID is fake. Sophie, female, born in the Republic of Batakia. Even the social security number checks out. Zoldyck forged, guaranteed quality. It even makes me 2 years older. If Dina found out her boss was actually a 14-year-old assassin, she'd probably pass out. I closed my book and smiled. "Relax, Dina. Monday mornings are always slow. Maybe people will come by after 2 p.m. Ding, timer's up. The cake's ready." Dina followed closely behind me, her anxiety practically forming a dark aura. "Miss, it's already 1:30 and still no one's come. It's so hot, won't the food spoil?" It does smell amazing." "Well, of course. I'm a master baker. The scent probably carried for 10 miles. I slipped on thick gloves and pulled out 2 sponge bases to cool, then started whipping cream. Just then, the door chimes jingled. A customer, finally. Dina bolted forward and bowed 90 degrees. "Welcome," she shouted. The poor man flinched and took a step back. I was standing there with an egg beater in one hand and a bowl in the other, feeling second-hand embarrassment. "Dina, you're scaring the guest." The man scratched his head, smiling awkwardly. "Ah, sorry. I was just passing by and smelled something really good." "What is it?" I chuckled. "Cake, just out of the oven. It's not decorated yet, but you're welcome to try it. We just opened today. First customer eats free. Feel free to order a coffee and relax while you wait." This time, Dina pulled herself together and provided service like a pro. I finished frosting and slicing. When I looked up, the customer was lying across the table, eyes shining, staring at the cake like it was treasure. I handed him a slice. He took it reverently, then returned to his seat, tail wagging in my imagination. This guy and Dina would make a perfect comedy duo. Amused, I packed 2 more slices for him and said, "Dina, the shop's yours. I'm headed to Lebanon. Be back for dinner." Dina clutched my sleeve. "Miss, what am I supposed to do without you? I'll screw it all up." I held back a laugh, patted her head. "You'll be fine, Dina. And even if you mess up, I won't know if I'm not here, right?" While she stood frozen in horror, I slipped out with the cake box. The cake was for Mr. Barrett, the lawyer who handled my property transaction. He'd been very kind and attentive during the entire process, and I suspected he had a personal connection to the house. During our 3-hour viewing, he reminded me 7 times that the building must remain a cafe. He practically nagged. I had a feeling this place meant something deeper to him and the former owner. I climbed the office stairs. No receptionist. I knocked, then entered when I heard his voice. Mr. Barrett looked surprised. Miss Sophie? Is something wrong with the property? No, I just happened to be in Lebanon and thought I'd drop by. I brought you some cake, my cafe's first bake, I said with a smile, holding up the box. I wanted your opinion on my skills. And I wanted to assure you, even with new ownership, the coffee shop will continue as is. The lawyer's expression softened. I stayed for half an hour, even brewed him a cup of coffee. As I was leaving, I asked, by the way, does the name Waiting for One Person Cafe mean something? Mr. Barrett fell silent, then said, the previous owner spent a long time waiting for someone. Did he ever find her? I immediately regretted asking. Stupid. If he had, why would the shop need to go on? But Mr. Barrett smiled faintly. They're together now. I left the office into a sky washed clean with light. Above, an airship drifted through cotton clouds. When I miss you, I look up and smile. Do you know that? Middle dot before everything middle dot May 20th 1989 middle dot It's good to be home. On the 14th day of my vacation, my cell phone rang for the first time in ages. I put down my book and answered. Only one number could call me, home. No one else had my number. Each of my family members is worth at least 100 million Jenny per photo. There's no way I'd give my number out recklessly. The only other person who has it is Hisaka. I haven't been in the business long. Not many regular clients yet. Hello? I answered, realizing too late that I used my female voice. There was silence. Then my father asked, is Illumi there? I had the sudden urge to answer, Illumi's still in bed. That would probably infuriate him. But I held back. What if they start arranging blind dates? Chapter 7. I'm still a pure 14-year-old boy. Embarrassing. So, seeing there were still customers in the shop, I kept a sweet smile and said, Ah, Dad, it's me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I smiled outwardly, but inside, I was howling with laughter. Illumi? I could practically hear the thunderous black lines forming around my father. Yeah, what's up, Dad? He paused, then tried to ignore the fact that I sounded completely different. Where are you now? I'm in Leman, 300 kilometers northwest of Lebanon. Didn't you know? I was genuinely surprised. Even though I used a fake identity, I hadn't hidden anything from my family. Maluki was there when I picked the location, and I used my own account to buy the house, easily traceable. I opened a coffee shop here. Drop by if you're in the area. Silence again. I sighed and asked, is there a job? I can come back early if needed. No, you're too far. Just continue your vacation, he replied. After a beat, he added, be careful on the road. The call ended. I stared at the phone, stunned. Was that a smile in my father's voice? Was he joking with me? No way. Someone must have been impersonating him. My stern, serious, always rigid father. Joking? I set the phone down, frowning. Maybe he didn't realize it, but I did. When I said, I can come back early, I didn't mean it. What I really thought was, I wish I never had to go back. I had books, money, a house, and time. These past 14 days were everything I ever wanted. I didn't want to leave, and I started having selfish thoughts. What if I just disappeared? No more killing, no more responsibilities. I could hide and live quietly in peace. But no. I can't think like that. I've only been in the hunter world for 2 years. There are many years ahead. If I falter now, what kind of person will I become? What kind of future will this world have? I have to strengthen my ties to this world. For the sake of my parents and my past life, I came here, compromising my human ethics. If I can love this life's family as much as I did my last, then I can endure anything. I've already proven that. So, I'll start from home. The journey back went smoothly, until I stepped into the house and was immediately tackled by a white-haired mutant guard dog. What the hell, Mike? He knew me. Caught off guard, I stumbled into a very awkward position. I didn't want to hurt him. How would I explain to his father if I did? I tried using a needle, but it was too short and his skin was too thick. I eventually paralyzed him, covered in fur and slobber. Drenched and disheveled, I sighed and headed to my room to change. Afterward, I asked my father directly, "Does Mike have rabies?" "Of course not," he replied with a straight face. "Please. As if I didn't know you're a transmutation type NEN user." I stared at him, deadpan. Grandpa watched our exchange like it was a game of cat eyes versus dead fish eyes. Finally, Grandpa explained, "Lately, Mike's been trained to detect imposters." "Seriously? Because I returned looking like Sophie, right scent, wrong face, he attacked me? Fine. Next time I come home as Sophie, I'll kiss my father in front of Mom, lipstick and all. I'll prepare earplugs in advance." Without a word, I placed 2 boxes on the table. Father and Grandpa stared at them suspiciously, likely wondering whether I'd brought poison or explosives. Fair, Maluki blew us all up last month after getting into mechanics. They hesitated. In the end, the one lacking facial paralysis training blinked first. They opened the boxes. One contained a pair of wrist guards, the other, a teapot. A memory I'll treasure forever. Grandpa's eyes lit up as he cradled the teapot I'd picked with care. My father, now lacking his silent alliance, stared at the wrist guards, confused. "What's this?" "A souvenir." "Souvenir?" Translation: what is that supposed to mean? "It's customary," I explained. "When someone returns from leave, they'd bring gifts for those who didn't get time off. Otherwise, it breeds resentment." They both looked annoyed. I blinked innocently. "That's what they say on TV." "TV? Translation: you watch TV?" "My clerk watches it. Dina tunes into Long Holiday at 8 p.m. every night without fail." I wasn't watching, but I couldn't avoid overhearing. Maybe I should have pitched it to them blankly, like a promo, introducing the hottest soap opera in town. That might have worked better. After my first vacation, I brought back gifts for everyone. Mom got lace gloves, Maluki a multi-tool, Kilowa and Aluka got candies, Goto a glasses case. In this universe, even Nen obeys the law of equivalent exchange. You must give before you receive. That fits my personality. Maybe giving means more to me than getting. I might not need friends, but I need my family. Before everything July 2nd 1990 uninvited guests. After the vacation, I felt recharged and efficient. My father and grandfather were so pleased, I even overheard them contemplating taking leave themselves. I'd worried I might get addicted to vacationing, but that fear was unfounded. With my current income, I earn a day of vacation roughly every month. I don't use them all. I save up for half a year and take 3 to 4 days off at once. Now I've got it down to a system. As long as I take more than 3 days off every 8 months, I can prevent my tremors from recurring. The cafe's running smoothly. Dina told me she was very nervous at first, but over time, seeing the steady income and friendly townsfolk, she settled in. She even asked if she could come back more often. I stopped her with family business. Every time I return on vacation, I bring small gifts. My mother was suspicious at first, worried I'd gone soft, but after working together once, she started accepting my kindness openly. Maluki, now fatter than ever, sticks to me like glue, constantly asking for things. If I flick his forehead, he giggles like a baby. Kilowa and Aluka? Still obsessed with candy. I'm beginning to wonder if I'm the reason Killua becomes a candy addict. But I've noticed something strange. Over these last 2 vacations, I've developed 2 modes, Illumi and Sophie. When I'm wearing Illumi's face, or disguised for work, I'm in Illumi mode, emotionless, calm, no needles required. I am facial paralysis. But when I switch to Sophie, I'm all smiles, full of emotion, even childish? Am I developing a split personality? Yikes. This nearly got me killed during my latest vacation. I requested 4 days off and happily returned to Lehman. I pushed open the cafe door and called out, "Dina, I'm back tilde." Before I could finish my sentence, I saw someone sitting in my usual spot, and froze. Black hair. Black eyes. White shirt. White bandages. Reading a book. Unexpected, yet completely expected. Chapter 8. Of course. The customer was none other than that infamous troublemaker, Krilo Silfer. In a book I loved in my previous life, there was a passage. Planting flowers invites butterflies, piling stones invites clouds, planting pines invites wind, storing water invites duckweed, building platforms invites the moon, planting bananas invites rain, and planting willows invites cicadas. Let me add one. Opening a shop invites spiders. I deserve it. Who told me to open a bookstore? Well, coffee shop. And stock it with books. The problem now was that Krilo had noticed me. His black eyes passed over the store casually, then met mine just as I froze in the doorway. Oh no. I'm just a small-town cafe owner right now. There's no reason I should react to him. I can't let him suspect I recognize him. In the split second of eye contact, I made a decision, meet his gaze with a blank stare, then turn beet red from head to toe, like a shrimp boiled alive. I held still for another 2 seconds, then turned stiffly and walked back inside, arms and legs flailing as if I didn't know how to coordinate them. Perfect performance. Dina was watching me with wide eyes, having already spilled coffee all over the table. I ignored her and climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor, arms swinging like a malfunctioning robot. In my room, I tossed my bag down and sighed deeply. Then I groaned and started banging my head lightly against the wall. The source material says I know Krilo, but doesn't explain when, where, or how we first met. What if this was it? What if I originally met him as Sophie? Then why did I just pretend to fall in love at first sight? Idiot. I never thought I'd get so attached to the Sophie identity, but clearly I had. I didn't want Krilo to realize who I really was. That's dangerous. What if I have to abandon this disguise later? I regret everything. Why did I open a cafe that looks like a bookstore? Just for convenience? I should have opened a beauty salon. Or a jewelry store. No, wait, that might attract Biscuit. A restaurant? Menki. A bar? Definitely Hisaka. A music shop? Melody and Pajit. A clothing store? My mother. Stick your head out, you get the knife. Keep it down, and you still get the knife. I took a deep breath and went back downstairs. Dina looked at me with a knowing expression. I shot her a glare, channeled my emotional turmoil into raw power, and beat 8 eggs in one go to start baking. In Illumi mode, stress or discomfort gets channeled into training. Pain becomes relief. Inserting needles at certain nerve points can simulate intense pain with minimal physical harm, but that's self-harm, not coping. At least training makes me stronger. In Sophie mode, I can't train. There's no healer on standby. But I can laugh when I'm happy and sulk when I'm upset. And when I need to vent emotions I can't express, I bake, just like in my past life. The result of baking while lost in thought? Way too much dessert. Dina watched in alarm as I made strawberry cake, tiramisu, apple pie, red bean rolls. And was just about to start on mango tarts when she finally stopped me. The table was overflowing. Thankfully, I run a cafe. My rage-fueled desserts could at least be sold. Then Dina flashed me a weird grin and took a sample plate, straight to Krullo. I slammed my head against the table. Dina, you're single. What kind of doomed red thread are you trying to tie? And with him, of all people, the king of spiders. Munching a strawberry, I collapsed on the table. Only my red-tipped ears peeked above the surface. I controlled my heart rate carefully. Why is vacation more stressful than work? I wanted to flip the table and hide underneath, but I needed it. Without it, where would I collapse? I buried my face and listened to their voices from across the room. Dina, hello, sir. Do you like dessert? Krullo, I do. But what's all this? Dina, our owner just tested out some new recipes. Would you like to try? It's on the house. Krullo, that's very kind. Dina's a great employee. Krullo's playing the polite customer role well. And I'm curled up like a dead bug, trying to disappear. Dina returned with an empty plate. She had the nerve to pat my head and whisper, "Good luck." I glared up at her. And met Krullo's smiling eyes. Blood flow rate, heart rate, muscle tension. I want to go home. Right now. Before everything July 3rd 1990 The spider, the girl, and the book. I thought the first day was bad. I was wrong. The real trial was still coming. The next morning, I bounded downstairs humming a tune. I'd gone over yesterday's events in bed, analyzing every detail. Embarrassing? Yes. But not a disaster. In fact, I did the best I could under the circumstances. My response was awkward, but believable. And the best part, Krullo didn't arrive until 9 or 10 a.m. Plenty of breathing room. Sure enough, when he showed up, he ordered a special coffee and brought a stack of obscure history books to his table, ready to dig in. Fortunately, I only had 4 days off this time. Today's desserts were golden cake and mung bean jelly. Well, mung is inaccurate since there are no peas in this world, but the flavor turned out fine. Dina delivered them while I continued playing the bashful girl in the corner, stealing glances with starry eyes. Krullo frowned slightly as he read. Combined with his baby-faced looks, he seemed like a model student. Nobody would guess he's the head of a criminal organization. He truly lived up to the title, Spider Number 1, Chapter 9. One of those classic tiger taming experts. While I was sneaking peeks at him, Krullo put down the book he was reading and picked up another. He flipped through a few pages, eyes widening slightly, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, then, after a while, he actually laughed out loud. What book was that? Curious, I craned my neck. Then groaned and slammed my forehead onto the table. That book. I read it during my first vacation. The title was promising, the content utterly brainless. I was so irritated I ended up annotating it furiously, just like a sage cursing a corrupt dynasty. Comments like nonsense, garbage, what a load of crap filled the margins. I managed 50 pages before cracking and scrawled, "This dog's nonsense reeks, just kill it and eat the meat." Then I tossed the book aside. And now? Karma. If I'd known Krullo would find it, I would have burned the whole thing. Just as I sat up, I froze again, because I remembered something worse. I annotated other books too. Even if I didn't include knowledge from Earth, I made comments using my Hunter World knowledge, compiled from the encyclopedia in my head and years of reading. It's impressive. I'm not bragging. I'm panicking. What if Krullo decides I'm useful for his next heist? Sure enough, when Dina went to refill his coffee, the spider leader asked with interest, "These annotations, who made them?" And Dina, my sweet, foolish, traitorous Dina, smiled and pointed straight at me, still hunched in the corner drawing circles on the table. "Dina, Don't expect a raise. Ever. I stared, horrified, as Krilo stood up with a book in hand and walked toward me, smiling like a gentleman. Miss Sophie, you're quite knowledgeable about Red King era history. I froze in my chair and squeaked out a dumb, ah. This book proposes a few fascinating theories. I recommend it, if you haven't read it. And thank you for the desserts. They were delicious. Huh? Krilo turned and walked away, leaving me staring at his back. I blinked, then looked down at the book he'd handed me, then opened it blankly. And began reading. 5 minutes later, Dina passed by and whispered, "Miss. The book's upside down." Krilo seemed to notice too. His brow furrowed slightly. "Look, I'm just a girl who likes pretty things and baked goods. I might be sharp, but next to you, Krilo, I'm nothing. And let's be honest, I'm not even talented enough to be useful to you. At least, that's the hope I clung to. I guess my disguise worked." 3 days later, I was sitting on an airship home, watching clouds drift lazily past the window. In those 3 days, I slowly withdrew, layered on new disguises, avoided any potential confrontation. Because if it ever came down to a real fight, I know I wouldn't win. My combat style isn't built for face-to-face battles. I'm not a warrior. I'm a killer. My strength lies in stealth, one-strike kills, and clean getaways. Killing outside of assignments is wasteful. The principle behind the needle I stuck in Killua during canon. That's my entire combat philosophy. More importantly, I haven't fully adapted to Nen combat or its advanced applications. If it came to a real fight, Krilo would have 1,000 ways to kill me. And I finally understood why I reacted so strongly to the embarrassment. I respect him. We Zoldycks are born killers. We're raised in wealth, with endless resources, healers, training rooms, Nen consultants, resistance drugs, everything. But Krilo? He came from Meteor City. He had nothing. No support. No resources. And still, he clawed his way to the top of the criminal world. People talk about the big three of the hunter world. Forget Hisoka, that freak just rides on charm and raw power. Me? I'm a shadow behind a protagonist. But Krilo? Even if he looked like Quasimodo, he'd still be the leader of the Phantom Troop. Goodbye, Krilo. Let's never meet again. Before everything. January 8, 1991. Hunter exam. We said we'd never meet again, but, surprise, he was still sitting in my cafe the next time I took a vacation. Reading, in my favorite seat. Dina said he'd left for a while, but returned not long after. If I left, he left. If I returned, so did he. So what was the point? This time, though, I came prepared. Last vacation, I'd realized how hard it was to manage my emotions while in Sophie mode. So I did some special training after returning home, maintaining Illumi's emotional control during work hours, then relaxing afterward. The side effect? Killua and Aluka now reflexively call every unfamiliar person Big Brother. Godo seems permanently traumatized by my bubbly vacation personality. But during this break, I kept myself completely in control. It was exhausting, though. Vacation wasn't nearly as restorative. Case in point, I took another vacation only 4 months later. And during that time, I was seriously injured for the first time. It was a trap. A minor assassination group tried using the Zoldyck name to boost their rep. I killed everyone involved in the ambush, but I was badly hurt. My Nen was sealed, maybe cursed by their leader, and I had to crawl my way home. What pained me most wasn't the injury, it was the medical bill. 1 foot long. My father didn't comment. It was a lapse in intel, not combat. When I requested leave to take the hunter exam, he agreed instantly. Though he did raise an eyebrow at my reason, transportation costs were too expensive. The real reason? Embarrassing. I wanted a hunter license because it offered discounts on NGL agricultural goods. I don't expect the cafe to make much profit, but I have to at least break even. So on January 7th, the 279th hunter exam began, with Sophie, coffee shop owner, standing among a crowd of bizarre, diverse uncles. Phase 1, Mountain Climb with Load. Each applicant received a backpack and had to scale a cliff within an hour. If your backpack left your back for more than 5 minutes, or you didn't finish in time, you failed. The real challenge wasn't just passing, but passing as an, almost, ordinary 18-year-old girl. I set my pace to match the braided girl 2 people over. 15 minutes in, my pack got heavier, oddly fast. The old man next to me should have collapsed by now. Then I realized, each backpack was calibrated differently. What was the metric? I sped up my heartbeat. Instantly, the weight stabilized. Ah! It reacts to physiological stress. I should have been panting from the start to mask it. If I reached the top with a steady heart rate and expression, it would have blown my cover. Worse, now the girl with braids seemed to be pacing herself by my performance. Phase 2, Beast Guardian. Each applicant drew lots for an animal, then had to survive with it in a special forest for 7 days. If the animal died, or if you did, you failed. Animal assignments were public. I felt a chill looking at the selection. The Scoro eagle only eats Andamere rabbits from the Republic of Gado. There are no such rabbits in this forest, except for 3, which were intentionally included. Andamere rabbits require high alcohol diets every 3 days. They need to consume 15 times their body weight in certain tree roots to survive. Other options included Junhua boas and Nicola leopards. Yep. This is the red, Chapter 10. L_UO's trap question. I was lucky enough to draw the beautiful Junhua tree boa. As long as I kept it away from the candidate who drew the skunk, it was easy to manage. The girl with double braids drew a palm-sized spider and looked absolutely miserable. But the unluckiest was the candidate who drew the Notland lion. He walked up with his lottery ticket and got half his head bitten off on the spot. The examiners whispered among themselves, just this once. This kind of exam takes too much effort, too much trouble. Hearing that made my heart skip. Once in the forest, my first priority was to find the skunk and its owner, and eliminate the threat. My second was to catch a bird to feed my snake. After that, I let it coil up on me and took a nap. Sleep is contagious. After sitting under a tree for 2 days with a slumbering boa wrapped around me, I started nodding off too. So when candidate number 438 stepped out of the bushes with a harmless smile, I barely registered him. It wasn't until I caught a faint, floral scent in the air that alarm bells rang. That scent. Slight hallucinogen, muscle relaxant. And something else. This forest really does have everything, including creeps who want to die beneath the peony, apparently. Word is, each candidate is monitored throughout the exam, so some take liberties. But Sophie's appearance is only slightly above average. I'm not even flattering or criticizing, I've got my real face to compare it to. So who would come after her? Conclusion: either this guy has some Nen ability that uses seduction, or he's just insanely confident in his personal appeal. Number 438 had already started undoing his belt. I kept pretending to be dazed, while contemplating something else entirely. I'm 16 this year, and biologically male. Should I start some kind of training in that area? In my past life, I was a shut-in and a bit of a lollikin. Tons of theory, zero practice. I died a virgin. Now I'm in a male body, and men supposedly fall prey to their lower instincts more easily. And this guy isn't bad looking. Then, 3 things happened at once. Number 438 flinched at a sudden scream and turned his head. A basin of cold water hit me squarely in the face. I realized something: in this life, I'm male, but the Sophie disguise is purely visual. Translation: I'm currently a she-male. Time to cancel the H training. I stepped 2 meters aside to dodge the splash zone and then kicked number 438 sky high, turning him into a shooting star. The second law of the Hunter world: time travelers will always encounter canon characters. Original characters are rare. The girl with the twin braids who'd been targeted, yes, the same one from Phase 1, was Menki. And the black-haired man with glasses who doused me was Wing. Huh. Didn't Menki have long hair in canon? Well, it's been 8 years, let her change her style. But Wing still has that unkempt hairstyle. I'd be delighted if the next examiner was Jing. Menki and Wing seemed to know each other. In the original story, they were both loosely affiliated with the Netero faction. After showing off my knowledge of flora and fauna, the three of us bonded and started cooking a mushroom stew using Menki's portable pot. Menki was still spooked about drawing the spider and tried to pass it to Wing. When he told her it was a grape spider larva that would eventually lay delicious eggs, her eyes lit up. She snatched it back and coddled it like a baby. Should I tell her it won't lay eggs for another 20 years? Also, the infamous boiled egg test from canon, was that my fault? Surrounded by ingredients and company, Wing eventually got a little tipsy on dongshu root mushroom soup and started teaching us both about Nen. He even performed water divination on Menki and me right there. Menki turned out to be a materialization type. She said she unlocked her aura nodes after eating something weird. I couldn't help but think of Lei Zenzi from Investiture of the Gods. She was delighted with her result: no more lugging kitchenware around. But I had a problem. Illumi is a manipulator. I should be one too. My past work supported that. And yet, as I stared into my bowl, the leaf floating on the water split. No, duplicated. There were now 3 identical leaves. Specialization. Why the hell is Sophie a specialist? I finished the rest of the exam in a daze, got my hunter license, and returned home immediately. I had to seriously reevaluate my Nen type. I just hope the world doesn't break because of this bug in the system. Before everything. March 6, 1992. Brother. Time flies. I've now been in this world for 5 years. Since passing the Hunter exam last year, my external assignments haven't changed much, those were always handled by the family anyway. As for the specialist ability that had caused me so much anxiety, it turned out to be laughably easy to understand. I found a text message in my phone, detailed instructions for how it works. So maybe the author isn't that cruel. But then again, my ability is one that helps others at my own expense. If I want something, or want something to happen to someone, I text a certain number. I'll get a reply stating what I must give in exchange. No negotiations allowed. I can revise my request or ask for clarification. Once confirmed, I text back, and the transaction is completed. The cost is automatically deducted. Sounds overpowered, and it is. But after some trials, I confirmed, it's still bound by the laws of equivalent exchange. Want supervision? Sacrifice another sense. Want to heal someone? Their injuries transfer to me. Want to harm someone? I suffer 3 times their damage. Basically, it's a built-in cheat line to the system admin of this world. But it follows a principle like that old witch from The Little Mermaid: what you give rebounds upon you. Let's put that on the back burner. I have more pressing concerns. Maluki turns 10 this year. The mental record in my head, Hunter History Timeline, unfinished, notes that in 1992, Illumi Zoldyck left home for the last time. It wasn't for a mission. I asked Dad, there's no assignment planned. Maluki's still weak in terms of abilities. And knowing him, he wouldn't just wander out for fun. Which means, it was either an accident, or he ran away. That latter theory's likely just my overexposure to Hunter fanfics. Still, I started watching him more closely near the end of last year. Maybe I have big brother complex. I can't help but want to be prepared for anything. But every time I look at Maluki, smiling and bumping into Aluka with his round belly, I see no signs of a future runaway. Killua rolled his eyes and muttered, "Childish," before leaping onto a cabinet and calling down to Aluka, "Taller than you. Taller than you." While making faces. So who's really childish? Aluka puffed her cheeks and stomped, glaring. But she didn't move. I walked over, crouched, and asked, "Can't Aluka jump today?" She glared at Killua again and replied seriously, "No. I'm wearing a puffy skirt today. Mommy said I have to act ladylike." Chapter 11, also quick note. Miki is a nickname for Maluki. Pro Beely should have corrected that. But too late now. So let's continue. I asked the heavens. "Mom, Aluka is only 5 years old, don't you think it's a little early to start teaching her how to be a lady?" I reached out, pulled the nail from my left shoulder, and asked, "Does Aluka want to come up?" Her eyes lit up as she leapt onto my shoulder with a bright grin. I hoisted her up, and this time it was her turn to make faces at Killua. He stomped and bounced in frustration. After a few rounds of squabbling, Killua darted off, sticking out his tongue as he ran. Aluka jumped down to chase him. They vanished in a flash, leaving just Miki and me. I lifted the little round boy up and carried him toward his room. Halfway there, he leaned in and whispered, "Brother, I want to go out. Just once." Thanks to years of facial paralysis training, I didn't drop him. Instead, I asked calmly, "Where do you want to go?" "Well, actually." After some hemming and hawing, I finally got the full story. Miki had met someone in an online game, using a Smurf account, of course, and now wanted to meet this new friend. The friend was in Lebanon. "Brother, aren't you there during your vacation? Can you take me out? Secretly?" Let's ignore how sketchy secretly sounds coming from a 10-year-old. Or the fact that he cross-dressed online to meet strangers. The most fascinating part? Mickey's Smurf account is female. He claimed to be a 16-year-old girl. And when his online friend asked for a photo, he sent one of me, in full Sophie disguise. Upon hearing that, I let go of Miki. He hit the floor with a thud. The little fat ball whimpered, rubbing his rear and avoiding eye contact. "Miki, listen up. I dropped you for 2 reasons. First, because you gave someone a photo of your brother. Our family is high risk. Even a vacation identity must be protected. If your stunt causes problems with my work or time off, I'll deduct it from your allowance. Understand?" He looked like he wanted to protest, but one glance at my eyes shut him up. "Good. Second," I continued, "because you plan to sneak out. Do you honestly believe there's anything about our family that Dad doesn't know? Even if I helped smuggle you out, he'd still find out. And there's no need for that. Just ask him. He'll probably agree. This isn't a spy movie. So, I'm going to talk to him. Do you want to come with me?" Miki shook his head furiously. Sigh. "Dad, you're too intimidating." To my surprise, Dad agreed readily. "Boys all go through that phase," he said. "They think the world is exciting, and they'll never know how good home is until they compare. And with you watching him, I'm not worried." He was probably shocked that our reclusive little otaku was voluntarily leaving his hideout. Mom, on the other hand, was ecstatic. Clutching her handkerchief, she exclaimed, "Train him well. Make him a first-class killer." "Mom, please stop." Aluka chimed in cheerfully, "Brother and Miki will bring gifts for Aluka." Killua, of course, whined, "I want one too." "Why does he get to go?" 1. You're 5. 2. What did you just call your second brother? Endurance training. 5 hours. Report to the grounds. This wasn't a vacation for me. Hisoka had called just before I left. He wanted help swatting flies that were interfering with a fight. His target was working as a bodyguard on the outskirts of Lebanon. This was the 5th time he'd asked me for something like this. What does this guy do when he's not clowning around? With his lifestyle, the Sky Arena bonuses probably don't cover his candy bill. He doesn't seem like a bank robber either. There was that fanfic where he was the hidden boss of the world's richest arms dealer family. Nah. I disguised myself as Sophie, gave Miki a new look, and returned to waiting for one-person cafe. Thankfully, Krilo wasn't there. The mere thought of him gave me a headache these days. Such a pity, his critiques were always interesting. I stayed at the cafe for one night, packed up some books I wanted to read, and moved to a hotel in Lebanon. Hisoka's task could turn unpredictable at any time. Even if I wasn't working, I wouldn't have joined Miki on his meetup. I disguised Miki to look like an 80% match to Sophie, gave him a card that wouldn't trace back to us, and sent him off with a map. He might not be a fighter, but he could protect himself. If he got scammed even under those conditions, he clearly needed more training. Meanwhile, I switched back to Illumi mode and went to work. Earning 3 billion had never been easier. Hisoka handled the main fight. I just cleared the field, killed everyone else, found an intact chair, and sat down to snack on melon seeds while watching. Honestly, watching Hisoka fight is worth the price of admission. The precision, the creativity, every move is a masterclass. His battles give me insights into combat that no amount of training can. Of course, he must never know this. He's one of my top clients. The battle ended with Hisoka's expected victory. When I returned to the hotel, Miki hadn't come back yet. I took a shower, picked up a book, and started reading. The concept was fresh, but the theoretical logic was flawed. Krilo had ripped it apart in the margins. I chuckled and scribbled a few rebuttals. Wait. Am I exchanging diary entries with Krilo now? Black line. The door opened. Miki walked in, crying. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't want to know. Honestly, I just wanted to kill whoever made my brother cry, but Miki had already handled it. He declared he never wanted to go out again. Everyone out there is mean. I should correct that mindset. But not here. Not now. I'd hoped to give him a fun adventure. But he just wanted to go home. Whether he was traumatized or just missed his lair and lab, I'll never know. I hope it's the latter. Back home, after opening the gate of Hades, we were greeted by Aluka sitting next to Mike. Aluka wants gifts, he shouted, hugging us both. I was prepared. Miki was stunned. Before everything August 23, 1992 Sister. In July, we welcomed a new baby brother, Kurt. In canon, Kurt is adorable, wears a kimono, and is easily mistaken for a girl. He later joins a group to search for his brother, which one is unclear. Right now, he's just a baby. Thankfully, his mom has no plans to dress her sons as girls. Praise be. I try to treat all my siblings equally, but naturally, there are differences. I dote on Miki the most. I tolerate Killua the least. Miki hasn't yet revealed his talent for tech or hacking, and our parents barely acknowledge him. He's a good kid, but easily overlooked. So if I don't spoil him, who will? Killua, though. He was groomed to lead. Before he was born, the family briefly considered me as the next head. I had the strength, the intellect. But I was emotionally unstable. So they kept me under observation. Then Killua came along. Talented. Smart. Most importantly, he had the right temperament. At this rate, he'll be the ideal successor. When I read the manga, I felt sorry for Killua, especially when Miki tormented him. But now, living it, I understand. That was the gentlest training anyone in our family could give. Miki was the weakest, both in strength and in torture technique. If it had been me, or our parents, or even the butlers, Killua wouldn't have gotten any sleep. Killua understands his place, too. That's why he casually calls Miki fatso. Unfortunately, I just don't like arrogant kids who can't back it up. Killua hasn't earned the right to act superior. None of the other kids are like this. Alluka, for instance, adorable, polite, affectionate, clingy but not annoying. Thoughtful and sweet. Easily the cutest kid in the family. Chapter 12. Sometimes I wonder why there's only a rear view of Alluka in the original work. But reality is more cruel than anything I could have imagined. I don't remember what I was doing when I received the call from home, nor do I recall what was said on the phone, or even how I rushed back. I only remember that when I arrived and saw my father face to face, I truly understood what had happened. 3 days ago, someone infiltrated Kukuru Mountain with the intent to assassinate the next head of the Zoldyck family while he was still a minor. Outsiders are unaware of the criteria for selecting the family head. They only observe that, since our great-grandfather, 3 consecutive heads have had silver hair. Coincidentally, that day, Alluka and Killua were playing and had dyed their hair the same color. Miki and I were trained from a young age, and when we saw strangers invading our home while we were still weak, our first instinct was to flee. But Killua and Alluka? Their reaction was to run over with smiles, asking for gifts. The intruders obliged. Lunatic's repairs were nearly invincible, but only nearly. He couldn't mend Alluka's injuries. We don't know what method the attackers used, the family's logistics department is still investigating. However, even if they succeed, some things can't be undone. Alluka is now incapacitated. Forget about practicing Nen or becoming an assassin, she might not even be able to get out of bed for the rest of her life. The family issued a strict order: no action is to be taken until we understand the enemy's methods, especially by our generation. My father looked me in the eye and repeated the command, asking if I understood. I nodded, turned around, and walked out. The perpetrators made no effort to hide. Miki had already located the target before I reached the airship landing field. I understand the order was issued to prevent further harm to the younger generation. The family can't afford more losses. I also know my capabilities. I'm not a warrior, I can't defeat Krilo, Hisoka, or even Grandpa and Dad. In a direct confrontation, there aren't many in the original work I could beat. But I am the best assassin of this Zoldyck generation. An assassin's strengths lie not in combat but in stealth, disguise, and delivering a lethal blow. Coupled with my unique ability, I can eliminate almost anyone without direct confrontation. 3 months later, 2 individuals were found hanging from the flagpole at the entrance of the Yuxin Nanpizi Club. One was the mastermind, the other, the perpetrator. They were still alive, but unable to see, hear, speak, or even move a finger. What they inflicted upon Alluka was returned to them in kind. There was no internal struggle, no emotion. This wasn't the first time I'd applied the Zoldyck family's torture techniques, but it was the smoothest execution yet. I returned home unnoticed and headed straight to see Alluka. My steps grew slower until I stopped a corridor away from her room, turned around, and went back to mine. I couldn't face her. It's my fault. Alluka is injured because of me. If I weren't me, if I were the original Illumi, I wouldn't be so weak as to need vacations to adjust my mood. I wouldn't change my appearance every time I returned home. I wouldn't have allowed Killua and Alluka to develop the habit of calling strangers brother. If Alluka had been like Miki and me in our youth, instinctively fleeing from strangers, this wouldn't have happened. It's my fault, yet I don't dare take responsibility. On the way home, I discovered that using the triple equivalent exchange could transfer Alluka's injuries entirely to me, swapping our conditions, she'd recover, and I'd be bedridden. Alternatively, transferring only half of her injuries would allow me, an adult with Nen training, to recover eventually. Aluka, though unable to practice Nen and physically weakened, could still live a relatively normal life. But in the Zoldyck family, what does it mean to live as an ordinary person? I chose the second option. I will always choose the second option. I sacrificed Aluka's future for my weakness. How can I face her? I removed the nails from my work attire and changed into light, worn pajamas. If immediate medical attention was needed post-transfer, I wouldn't ruin a good set of clothes. I secured my ID and bank card, then texted Hisoka, informing him I might be unavailable for work due to family matters and advising him to take care and avoid impulsive actions. I called Goto, requesting he come to my room immediately. Then I lay down, opened the last draft message, and confirmed to send it. Instantly, it felt as if my body was deconstructed and reassembled. A strange weightlessness overtook me, followed by overwhelming pain. I instinctively activated Enhanced Nen, but it was ineffective. Immobilized, I could only lie there and endure. This was only half of Aluka's injury. Aluka is genuinely afraid of pain, perhaps because she's a girl. With the same injury, Killua would feign toughness, pretend it didn't hurt, then forget the pain and go play. But Aluka isn't like that. She always has tears in her eyes, biting her lip in pain, and when she sees me or our parents, she asks for a kiss. Yet, she never shirks her training. She once earnestly said she'd train hard to work alongside our parents and brothers in the future. Our family's gender ratio is severely imbalanced, boys everywhere, and only Aluka as the girl. It's said that when Killua and Aluka were born, our mother clutched Aluka tightly, exclaiming that the clothes she'd prepared for 12 years were finally worn by someone. For the boys, our mother's focus was on making us excellent assassins. But for Aluka, she was like a typical mother, attending to every detail of her life. 2 years ago, after returning from a mission, Aluka watched a TV show and earnestly told me that her brother must be tired from working outside and offered me tea. She then commandeered Grandpa's cup and poured me a full serving. At that moment, our mother was moved to tears, our father smiled subtly, Grandpa was annoyed his cup was taken, and Killua and Miki were too engrossed in opening the gifts I brought back to notice. I could feel life slipping away, my senses dulling, consciousness fading. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be Aluka. The last thing I saw was Goto's anxious expression. Before everything, March 6, 1993, Hisoka. For the next 6 months, I focused on rehabilitation. The first month was the most monotonous. I lay in bed daily, wrapped like a mummy. Thankfully, it was winter, otherwise, I might have overheated. This period was ideal for reflection. One advantage, even if I had wild thoughts or obsessions, I couldn't act on them, I was immobile. I must bear some responsibility for Aluka's condition, but I wasn't the one who plotted against the next Zoldyck heir, nor did I harm Aluka. My fault lies in lowering my guard, endangering my family's safety. Aluka's condition is now stable. Goto mentioned she'll recover to a physique slightly weaker than average. I can't change that presently. If, in the future, the mission concludes and the world no longer needs me, I can transfer the remaining injuries to myself. I aim to survive, to remain the top assassin of this Zoldyck generation, to continue undertaking missions worldwide, appearing wherever the plot demands. Therefore, I abandoned Aluka. If a similar situation arises again, regardless of who it involves, even my father or mother, I will abandon them. I must. I will. Fortunately, in the original work, until the Korta clan's demise, everyone was alive and well. Killua, the protagonist, wouldn't suffer irreparable harm. Krillou and Hisoka were alive and thriving. Of course, Uvogin, Pakinota, and Kite would die, so I didn't plan to get close to them. The individuals I care about who didn't appear in the original work are Aluka, Dina, Lunatic, and Sophie's vacation status barely counts. I'm prepared to lose them, and if the plot requires, I must be capable of eliminating them myself. Okay. Break time and a quick note. Chapter 13 and 14 are Hisoka approved. You have been warned. Continue at your own risk. I don't want to see any complaints in the comments. Chapter 13. Over the past month, I simulated the scene countless times in my mind, abandoning my family, killing my friends, the look in their eyes before death, the screams and curses, the stickiness of blood. By the time I could move, I had the confidence to do what I had to do without changing my expression. Actually, I'm already very lucky. In the original work, Illumi has very few scenes. He only participated in the Hunter exam, then appeared in York New City pretending to be Hisoka, and that was it. If I were to dress up as one of the 4 protagonists, such as Kurapika, that would be fatal. But Kurapika would never run away with a time traveler, so this assumption is not valid at all. I didn't tell anyone why I was injured, but my father and grandfather should have guessed it. When I fell, Aluka miraculously began to recover. It would be strange if they didn't guess it. In the original work, my grandfather could even see the conditions for using Kurlo's ability. I've been trying to learn this kind of observation and insight, but I'm too lacking, and the learning effect is not obvious. After all, I am an adult and have nen, so my injuries healed quickly. It took me some time to regain control of my body, and the rest of the time was spent training hard to recover my fighting ability as soon as possible. Goto also returned to his full-time job from personal nurse. Well, he seemed to be very calm and adapted when he was in charge of my eating, drinking, defecating, and urinating. But I am not adapted. By the way, wasn't Goto the butler in the original work? Why did he become my nanny? Anyway, there are still 6 years before the plot develops to Kukuru Mountain, and Goto must become the butler before that. Before starting training, I finally went to see Aluka. My sister was lying on the hospital bed, pale and weak. When she saw me, she smiled at me with great effort, and then asked me why her brother hadn't come back for so long and asked Aluka for a gift. I answered calmly that there was a gift, but Aluka had to get better quickly to use it. At the same time, I made a note in my mind to go back to my room and buy 2 skateboards online to cover up the lie. My father stopped me outside the ward. He looked me over and asked, "Illumi, how is your health now?" I calculated in my mind and answered, "My combat effectiveness has only recovered to 40% of what it was before, my endurance has dropped to 30%, and the probability of bone fracture has increased. However, Zetsu can still be used normally. Now I can probably only take jobs worth less than 200 million jenny. It will take at least 2 years to recover to my best condition." I paused and added, "I'm sorry." "No. Never mind," Dad sighed and told me, "Killua has to go to the Heavens Arena for training. You go and see him off." Hunterpedia. I answered yes, wondering why my father sighed. So the family just left Killua in the Heavens Arena and ignored him. How could it be possible, even if Aluka hadn't happened? When we left home, the butler Almatsu was quietly following us. He would have been following Killua for the past 2 years. If Race hadn't committed suicide, he should have been responsible for protecting them secretly. He has been responsible for Killua and Aluka since they were born. Killua's strength is not good at the moment, but it is enough to walk sideways below the 50th floor. My family has a stake in the Heavens Arena, and before he came, my family had already informed the management that he would not progress too fast and encounter too much danger. So after watching Killua's first battle, I still had the leisure to watch Hisoka's solo performance. I refuse to call this scene where Hisoka appears alone from beginning to end a competition. On the stage, Hisoka was twisting his waist and laughing as usual, but I could tell he was getting bored. I sent out a thought and sure enough, Hisoka glanced in my direction. I tilted my head and motioned to wait for him in his room. As I turned to leave, I heard the referee's voice announcing the victory. He didn't kill his opponent. It seemed that Hisoka was in a good mood today. The result of the leisurely stroll was that I arrived right after Hisoka. The man, covered in dust and blood, went straight to the bathroom without saying a word. I began to suspect that Hisoka was not just fond of taking a bath but had mysophobia. I picked up the clothes he had thrown around and threw them into the laundry bag, then took out the tea set and started making tea. After 2 cups of tea and half a novel, Hisoka came out in a bathrobe, his hair still dripping with water. He stood there looking at me, smiling as if he was very amused, and said, "Long time no see, Illumi has become weaker," and then suddenly attacked. When he looked at me like that, I guessed that this guy would definitely try. I threw the novel away and kicked the table and tea set 2 meters away. I crossed my arms to block his fist, but my right hand broke with a snap. Embarrassing, I am really not used to my weak body. Hisoka seemed to be surprised and gave me half a second of buffer time, so I stepped back, created some distance, and started a guerrilla war. 5 minutes later, the tea set and the green tea I brewed were still not spared. It seemed that Hisoka didn't mind destroying his own room. Well, then I don't mind either, but... Hisoka, you're not afraid of exposing yourself, but I am afraid of getting a sty. Can you please put on your clothes first? Oh, Illumi is in trouble. Medium. +1. Hunterpedia. +1. This guy started to get excited. What a nuisance. Well, if you dare to fight with me in a naked suit, then take my kick. I didn't kick you, what a pity. Hisoka started to get serious. After 2 rounds, he grabbed the gap of my right hand and pushed me to the ground, laughing, "Illumi is not kind." Nonsense, I'm kicking you, a pervert. I was about to twist my body to break free, but suddenly I felt something was wrong. The main reason why Hisoka is considered a pervert is that he cannot distinguish between his fighting desire and sexual desire. The argument that proves this point is now pressing against me through a thin bathrobe. For some reason, I opened my legs. My body froze for a second. If I wanted to break free, now was the time. Facing his eyes, I raised my waist and pressed against that hot, hard part. Hisoka's expression changed. Before everything, March 7, 1993, it's not about love. When I woke up, I was confused for a moment when I saw the unfamiliar ceiling, and then the pain all over my body reminded me of the madness that had gone on yesterday. Correction, only my upper body hurts. When we were excited yesterday, Hisoka dislocated my hip joint, and when he had enough fun, he didn't know to put it back. After a night like this, I have no feeling below the waist. I sighed, pulled out a few nails from my right shoulder and inserted them into my waist and legs. I also gave one to the culprit who was sleeping like a dead pig on top of me, and said, "You get 2 more hours of sleep." Now that I'm awake, I don't know what expression I should use to face you. I remember a classic answer from my previous life, just smile, but I have a feeling it would be very inappropriate to use it here. By the way, I have facial paralysis. My sense of touch gradually returned, and I gritted my teeth and endured the pain to get out. I almost fell down again when I stood up. Hisoka, that bastard. But my fighting ability seems to be not bad either. Just now he was on top of me and I couldn't see it. Now I stand up and look down. His back is really spectacular. There are many roads and paths, and the only difference is that there is no sound of chickens and dogs. Fortunately, my character is better than his, and I didn't stretch out my nails when I was excited. I went into the bathroom and took off my tattered clothes. The scene in the mirror was even more spectacular. Bruises, purple bruises, kisses, bite marks. Last night was really crazy. I looked back at myself in the mirror calmly. I always felt that I adapted to time travel quite quickly. A homely girl who had never experienced any setbacks, I traveled to the hunter world, gave up part of my memories, accepted the memories of a child who had been trained as a killer since childhood, and then trained myself to be expressionless, trained myself to kill, and at the same time, there were 2 mountains of keeping secrets and completing tasks weighing on my shoulders. Then I accepted it as a matter of course, started training calmly. Chapter 14. I would sacrifice my life for Aluka's recovery. The month I spent bedridden calmed me down, but undercurrents remained, and problems would arise at the slightest provocation. For example, last night. There's nothing inherently wrong with having sex with Hisoka. After meeting a stud during the hunter exam, I considered who I might choose for such an encounter. Having been a woman in my previous life, I lacked interest in physical intimacy in this one, so I am a bottom. I haven't forgotten all the knowledge from my days as a Fuyoshi, perhaps that's a good thing. If I were to find a man to be with, my first choice would be Hisoka. This guy has no moral integrity, which likely means he's skilled. I'm also confident that having sex won't change our dynamic. The problem lies with the candidate, the timing, and the process. Fighting like a fairy is certainly fun, but the first time should occur in a comfortable environment and a relaxed mood. Even if you're unlucky and conditions are limited, it shouldn't come to the point where you can't win the fight, get pinned to the ground, then go crazy and seduce the opponent, only to end up with one of you having broken hands and feet and the other with his back scratched to pieces. At the beginning of last night, Hisoka was quite gentle, but after I scratched and bit him a few times, he became rough. In my previous life, a certain language referred to orgasm as a little death. The moment I climaxed for the first time last night, I truly wanted to die. Now, looking back at the past 6 years, it feels like a lifetime ago. It's not the false calmness from before, now my mood is as calm as still water. I traveled to this world with a mission. It has nothing to do with good or evil, right or wrong. I have something I must do, no matter what. That's all. Before completing the mission, I won't die, even if you kill me. If you dare to stand in front of me and block my way, you must be prepared to be stepped on by me. No more fear, no more confusion, no more sorrow for what I've lost, no more pain for what I cannot change. Now, 6 years after arriving in the hunter world, I can finally accept this new self. Is it because of last night? I never knew that sleeping with Hisoka could actually transform me. Could this be the legendary method of replenishing yang? There was a tube of lipstick under the bathroom mirror. I don't know which of Hisoka's bed partners left it there. He even used Nen to apply his clown makeup. Suddenly, I wanted to play a prank, so I used the lipstick to write 2 big words "thank you" on the mirror. After thinking about it, I added good technique below and drew a big red heart at the end. My clothes were completely ruined, and I didn't bring any replacements. Luckily, Hisoka and I are of similar build, so I went to his closet and got a shirt and trousers to change into. Hisoka still needed to sleep for half an hour, so I wanted to just leave, but I felt soft-hearted for no reason, so I carried him to the bed and inserted a few more strengthening needles into him. My right hand was broken and my left leg was lame, this bastard. The first thing I did when I got home was to repair myself. This body was already very weak, so I shouldn't cause any more trouble. When I took off my shirt, I heard Goto's obvious inhalation. When I looked over, his expression had already been hidden behind his glasses. What's going on? I looked down at myself. Okay, I know what's going on. The kiss mark left from that night hasn't faded yet. I felt a little embarrassed and continued to look expressionless, lying on the bed so that lunacy could check my physical condition. The injuries on my right hand and left leg weren't serious. If it were in the past, they would have healed if left alone, but my current physical condition is incomparable to that of the past, so I was ordered to accept the repair and lie on the bed for 2 hours. I've been with this bed for 6 years. Now I've formed a conditioned reflex. No matter what kind of injury I have, no matter how noisy the room is, as long as I lie down, I'll fall asleep within a minute. This time is no exception. When I woke up, Goto was holding me and walking to my room. I was too lazy to open my eyes and continued to enjoy the feeling of being half asleep and half awake in his arms. I went all the way back to the room, was put on the bed, had my shoes taken off, and was covered with a quilt. Then I felt a strange touch on my lips. I suddenly opened my eyes and met Goto's gaze. Many things flashed in those eyes that were usually as deep as a pool: shock, fear, desire, hope, tenderness. So I knew it was over. "Goto," I said, sitting up and staring into his eyes, "I don't need you anymore. Niles's strength isn't sufficient in the sky arena. You should go there tomorrow." I will always remember his expression at that moment. Then Goto lowered his head, said, "Yes, young master," and turned and left. Looking at his back, I whispered, "Please take care of Cedric." Goto paused slightly, so I knew he would. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling in a daze. Goto is from Meteor Street. He came with my mother when she married into the family. He was a trainee housekeeper before that. He only took charge of me after the incident with my predecessor Illumi when I was 12. When I crossed over, the first person I saw was him. There will no longer be anyone watching over my physical condition during training, no one to hold me for repairs or carry me back to my room. That comfortable embrace is gone forever. If he just wants a pure relationship, it's fine to give it to him. Goto is half of my family, and I trust him more than any outsider. Unfortunately, no. I can't give him what he wants. I can't afford it. I don't know when he started. The people from Meteor Street are the most troublesome. Before everything. June 25, 1994. Lost children. No matter who is missing, life goes on the same. I wasn't used to it at first. I almost had an accident during my first training session after Goto left. Fortunately, my grandfather stopped the training in time and carried me to recover. Looking back, my grandfather must have come to monitor me after he learned that Goto had left. The elders in the family were all awkward, and of course, the most awkward one was my mother, who was from Meteor Street. Without Goto's silent protection, I had to be careful not to kill myself, which would restrict my training and make it ineffective. So I started fighting with Hisoka instead, which helped me train my physical fitness and my nen ability, gain combat experience, and often ended up in bed. The book says that a certain frequency of sexual intercourse is good for physical and mental health. I don't know about my body, but it does help me relax my nerves psychologically. In addition, my current efficiency in making money isn't good. I haven't had a vacation for a year. The extermination of the Kurta tribe should have happened this year. I don't know what Kurlo is doing now. In the past few months, Dina has called me several times to ask when I will come back. When I asked her what happened, she hesitated and didn't say anything. It seems that I still have to go back when I have time. I didn't expect the opportunity to present itself in this way. Aluka's recovery from her injuries was very slow. I was able to go on a mission after half a year, but she was still lying in bed after a year. Now it's been almost 2 years, and she can only take care of herself. Then a problem arose. She did recover to a state slightly weaker than that of an ordinary person, but the Zoldyck family isn't an ordinary family. The original work mentioned that in the servants' quarters, each cup weighed 20 kilograms, each slipper also weighed 20 kilograms, and the chair weighed 60 kilograms. What it didn't mention was that the weight in the housekeeper's room was doubled, and the weight in the master's room was doubled again. If any normal person can walk in 160 kilogram slippers and drink water from an 80 kilogram cup, please stand up and let me admire you. Before, when Aluka was bedridden and needed to be fed, no one noticed this problem, but now that she can take care of herself, this problem has become very serious. If it were just a problem with cups, spoons, shoes, and socks, we have normal weight items at home, but what about doors? Any door in the house requires more than 50 kilograms of strength, and it's impossible to replace them all. A 7-year-old child is at the age when she loves to play and make trouble, and all her activities are restricted, which is very distressing. The worst part is that our home is at a high altitude, the climate is cold, and there's not enough oxygen. In the last month alone, Aluka has been sick twice. Illness isn't like an injury. There's no way for lunacy to repair it. My family is used to eating poison as a condiment. The traditional method of injections and medication is also ineffective. We can only wait for her to recover on her own. This won't work. While running around working, I was also thinking about whether there was any solution, but I couldn't think of anything except using triple equivalent exchange to exchange my physical fitness. With my IQ, why am I still in the manipulation category? I should be in the enhancement category. Chapter 15. Upon returning home, my father intercepted me outside the training grounds to relay the family's decision. "Dad, could you please repeat that?" The wind was too loud, I couldn't hear clearly. "There's nothing unclear. The family has decided to let Aluka live in the coffee shop you opened. You can take her there once you're ready." My father slipped away while I was still processing the information, leaving me with no one to question further. Well, it's not really an issue. I never intended to hide the store from my family. Miki has been there, so it's acceptable for Aluka to go as well. I had mentally prepared myself during the month I was bedridden to relinquish the identity of Sophie at any time. In terms of safety, I'm not concerned about the store itself or Dina. My family is aware of the store, and outsiders perceive it as an ordinary coffee shop, so there shouldn't be any significant problems. Aluka will need to assume a new identity. She's always been obedient and intelligent, so she should handle role-playing well. Of course, given her current physical condition, she can't alter her appearance with nails like Miki did back then, but outsiders don't know what Aluka looks like anyway. The only ones who might know are the organization that harmed her previously, and I've already addressed that when I took revenge. The only person who might pose a problem is Krilo. I managed to conceal it from him with great difficulty. I'm uncertain if Aluka can deceive him. I estimate that if Aluka doesn't know Krilo is in danger, the success rate is 80% to 90%. If he does, the success rate drops to 50%. But even if it's exposed, the leader of the Phantom Troop wouldn't attack Zoldyck family members without reason. Although the original work doesn't mention Illumi having a vacation identity, it doesn't state otherwise either. I've been cautious all along, just to avoid trouble. Considering this is feasible, we need to act quickly. Not only is Aluka listless every day, but her mother's condition is deteriorating. It's better to leave sooner rather than later. Dad must have been conflicted about making such a decision. From his perspective, it would be wise to sever all ties between Aluka and the family. In this situation, I don't know if he's more concerned about Mom or Aluka. But this is what made me feel that, in addition to being the head of the Zoldyck family, he is also my father. Throughout the journey from home to the airship, Aluka remained silent, no talking, no laughing, no movement. I grew concerned and carried her the entire way. During our transit in Lebanon, Aluka finally spoke up and asked me, "Brother, does the family not want Aluka anymore?" I was halfway through inserting the nails for disguise when my hands shook, resulting in a triangular eye. I simply pulled them all out, squatted in front of Aluka, and began to explain, "No, it's because our home is too high up and the climate is harsh, making Aluka prone to illness. Living with me won't make you sick." Aluka was silent for a while, then quietly asked, "Can I still go home afterward?" Of course, but Aluka needs to be in good health before returning home. Mom, Dad, and Killua can come to see you. Besides, I'll visit often. Doesn't Aluka like her brother? The little girl shook her head and hugged me. I breathed a sigh of relief, finally getting through to her. "I told you this at home before, Aluka, remember? You'll have to call me sister after you change your appearance." Feeling her nod, I patted her and asked, "Aluka, choose a fake name too. What would you like it to be?" The little girl held me tightly and refused to let go. "Call me Anita, brother, is that okay with you?" This name isn't ideal. Let's choose another." Holding Aluka's, "No, Ellie's hand, I pushed open the door, and my first reaction was to rub my eyes. When did Dina shrink? Comic Vine. Staring at the little brown-haired girl running around with a tray, I began to wonder if I had walked into the wrong establishment. Then Dina emerged from the kitchen, pulled me aside, and began to explain with a nervous sweat on her forehead. Last month, she went to Lebanon to stock up on goods. When she saw this child huddled in a corner with disheveled hair and a dirty face, Dina suddenly had a maternal impulse and brought back a living person. "Miss, this child is really pitiful. Please keep her. You don't have to pay her wages, just provide her with food and accommodation. She doesn't eat much. If she eats more, I can eat less." Dina's mumbling has improved a lot over the past 5 years, but she still forgets punctuation marks when she's nervous. I was sweating coldly as I listened. Sophie's face wasn't very pretty, but it wasn't that bad. Doesn't she look like a black-hearted boss? I took an apple from the fruit bowl and stuffed it into her mouth. I waved the child over, squatted down, and asked her, "What's your name?" The little girl lowered her head and answered, "Colleen." "Okay, Colleen, you're hired by me now. The probation period is 1 month. During this period, the salary is 3,000 yen. After the probation period, it will be 5,000 yen. Food and accommodation are provided, and there will be a salary increase in the future. You can ask Sister Dina for the specific scope of work. Also, how old are you?" 12 years old. Colleen finally looked up at me. This child is quite pretty, with a pair of big purple eyes. After reaffirming in my mind that there is no such person in the original work, I nodded and told her, "This is my sister Ellie. She is 7 years old this year. Please take good care of her. Come, Ellie, call me sister." Ellie's charm was fully revealed. She called Colleen sister sweetly, then turned around and called Dina sister, and then Dina hugged her and doted on her. I laughed inwardly, turned my head, and saw Krilo sitting on the side watching the scene. I patted Ellie. "Ellie, go call Krilo uncle." Initially, I had to act crazy around him, but now I don't need to act crazy anymore. I will complain to him no matter what. Krilo's smile froze for a moment, but fortunately, Ellie was very adept at reading expressions, so she just smiled sweetly at him and didn't actually say anything. Then Krilo extended his hand to Dina, who made a bitter face and handed him 1,000 rings. I looked at him with a questioning expression and asked, "What are you doing?" "Miss, Mr. Krilo said that you would definitely keep Colleen when you came back and would officially hire her. He made a bet with me." "Is this really Krilo? Is this truly the leader of the Phantom Troop, the Spider Boss? No way, it must be Rokaku pretending to be him." Chapter 16. It had no effect except sending me to sleep early. Fortunately, after returning home, I delegated everything to Benson, who was in charge of financial investments. The outcome of my discussions with the family was that my father informed me they already held 19% of Mizenland's shares and could consider transferring them to me at the cost of 20 jobs. With a significant amount of money remaining, I impulsively purchased a publishing house. Before the merger was finalized, my father sent me back to the store, stating that since Killua was not at home, he could manage my mother's situation and asked me to return to look after Aluka. He mentioned he would contact me if there was any work at home. I wanted to ask Dad if he had forgotten about Miki, but in the end, I didn't. It was 2 in the morning when I returned to the store. I didn't plan to wake anyone, so I intended to sneak into my room. Before entering, I noticed a light on inside. A small lamp was lit next to the bar, and Colleen was curled up there, engrossed in reading. Books were piled up to her shoulder height. I called her softly, and the little girl jumped up as if startled, looking at me with wide eyes and hiding the book behind her. Now I understood why this child seemed so listless during the day. While reflecting on my lack of vigilance, I was also troubled by the child's thirst for knowledge. With a sigh, I put down my luggage and sat down. I patted the chair next to me, motioning for Colleen to sit. While organizing my thoughts, I slowly said, "It's commendable to seek knowledge, but you're only 12 years old. You're still growing and need adequate sleep. Your daytime work also requires you to be mentally alert. This is basic professional ethics." Seeing that Colleen was almost shrinking into the back of the chair, I decided not to tease her further. "So, from now on, your working hours will be adjusted to 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can use the morning as you like, read books or do whatever you wish, but you must go to bed by 10 p.m. Do you understand?" The little girl nodded earnestly. Thinking of what I was about to ask next, I couldn't help but sigh again and said, "But, Colleen, I need to know, what do you intend to do with the knowledge you're acquiring?" Colleen's body language changed, shifting from a clerk caught staying up late to a small animal sensing a predator, her entire body tensing up as she looked for an escape route. I was speechless and questioned the heavens. Was I like a black-hearted boss before, and now like a human trafficker? Relaxing my posture and spreading my hands to show no ill intentions, I added, "You don't have to answer, I'm just asking casually. Because some things may be difficult to achieve on your own, but for me, they might be a piece of cake." "I don't understand you. Do you think you're an unscrupulous politician, you little brat? For example, if your brother was sold by a wicked relative and you need money to redeem him, or if your dream is to excavate certain relics, I can help you." I felt it was absurd as I spoke. The first hypothesis was plausible, but the second was pure nonsense. Could it be due to lack of sleep? I had only missed 3 days of sleep. Back then, not sleeping for half a month was nothing. However, Colleen's expression changed as I spoke, becoming more amused. The child was truly well-mannered. She waited until I finished speaking before responding, "I don't want to dig up ruins. The living shouldn't disturb the dead. I don't have any brothers or evil relatives. They're all dead." Her expression when she said the last sentence revealed how those people died. "You seek revenge?" Colleen lowered her head. Compared to her calm response earlier, her voice was now hesitant and weak. "I don't know." I sighed for the third time. This was the most troublesome situation. I just hoped this child wasn't a residual issue from my family's assignments. Some clients of family extermination jobs required eliminating all humans in a designated building at a specific time, which could leave behind such problems. It would be ironic if the child's real name was Anita. When I thought of this, I considered silencing her, but after deliberation, I dismissed the idea. The chances were too slim to pose a threat for the time being, and as far as I knew, my family had not yet taken over the job of the Laxiangshan drug lord. It seems you also understand that revenge has side effects. It can make you feel good temporarily, but after a while, it will make you lose your purpose. I personally regard it as something akin to drugs, so I don't recommend making revenge your life's goal. You're only 12 years old. If you can comprehend all these books, your intelligence is evidently above average. You could even be called a genius. With such intelligence, you can achieve many things, both for yourself and for the world. So please think carefully about which path you plan to take. What do you plan to accomplish? Silence. I waited patiently, and finally, Colleen looked up into my eyes and answered. "I want my loved ones to rest in peace, and I want what happened to me to never happen to anyone else." These two sentences can be interpreted in many ways. Looking at the child's expression, she chose the most arduous path. There are things that people can do, and there are things they cannot do. I quoted a famous saying from my past life, the corners of my mouth curling up sarcastically. Don't spend your life on things you can't do. But I have to do it no matter what. There was a spark of fire in Colleen's eyes. "Do I have to do it no matter what?" I murmured softly, a little dazed. The blurred past life, the bloody present life, the withered mountain engulfed by magma, the hellish world. I also have things that I must do no matter what. So, I softened my heart. Before everything middle. April 5, 1995 middle. Homecoming kids. 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Last week, my family informed me that Killua has reached the 200th floor of the Sky Arena. If I didn't know the original work, I might be a little surprised. I went to the Sky Arena when I was 7 years old, and it took me 2.5 years to reach the 200th floor. Of course, that wasn't me. But Killua is more talented than me, and it took him 2 years, which can only mean that this kid is playing around again. In my previous life, I was 27 when I died. I regretted not spending less time playing video games and more time learning. That's why I started to train like crazy after coming to this world. My education is strict. You can never have enough fun, but you won't have time to make up for missed learning opportunities in the future. Especially with Miki and Aluka at home, I was furious to see Killua being ignored even though he had talent. Probably because of my attitude, my father decided to hand over Killua. Chapter 17. The only difference now was the presence of a kimono-clad doll named Kurt standing silently behind her. Aluka ran over joyfully, calling out Mom, but our mother ignored her and walked away with Kurt in tow. Kurt turned back to glance at us, his black eyes devoid of emotion. I held Aluka close as she cried on my shoulder, a mix of emotions swirling within me. Our mother hails from Meteor City, a fact not immediately apparent due to her seamless adaptation to our family's lifestyle. However, her belief that the weak do not exist has led her to disregard Aluka, who has become frail. Instead, she dresses Kurt in Aluka's old kimono, seeking a shadow of her daughter in him. If memory serves, that kimono was Aluka's when she was 4. Dealing with people from Meteor City is always complicated. Given the circumstances, I had no choice but to send Aluka back to the store. On my way home, Hisoka contacted me about a job. Kuroro hadn't returned since taking a large batch of blueberry pies, and I hadn't had a break in a while. After completing the task, I accompanied Hisoka back to his hotel room. This time, I was too exhausted to engage in our usual sparring, and my mind wandered to plans for Miki, Aluka, and Killua's training. Noticing my distraction, Hisoka remarked, "Illumi, you are not focusing," before stepping away. He then introduced an unexpected element to our interaction, catching me off guard. Despite my initial surprise, the experience was intense and left me breathless. Afterward, I found myself alone, Hisoka having vanished. The encounter was as wild as our first, leaving me sore and disoriented. I dragged myself to the bathroom to clean up, discovering that my phone had been involved in Hisoka's antics. Clearly, it was time for a new device. As I was about to finish, a new text message appeared. "Illumi, be good, heart emoji. That scoundrel." Before everything, November 24, 1995, a quiet life. The following 2 months were tumultuous. Dina called to inform me that Aluka had fallen ill upon returning to the store, while I was tasked with developing a training plan for Killua. I couldn't help but question why this responsibility fell to me when my father and grandfather were more experienced. Meanwhile, Aluka was battling a 39-degree fever. Timing is everything, and Killua chose this moment to challenge me. Reaching the 200th floor of the Sky Arena must have inflated his ego. Niles should have let him experience the challenges there before bringing him back. What irked me most was Killua's confidence even after I unleashed energy mixed with telekinesis and malice. Naturally, I ensured he received proper treatment and reinforced my resolve to keep him grounded. While Killua recovered and my elders reviewed my training plan, I returned to the store. Aluka's condition had improved, thanks in part to a local boy named Brian, who happened to be the cousin of our first customer. Dina's fondness for Brian was evident, and I began to worry about the influence these brothers might have on the women in my store. Thankfully, my concerns were unfounded. With Colleen's support, Aluka's pastry-making skills had improved, despite occasional mishaps like wrapping shrimp heads and tails together in dumplings. Pleased with her progress, I gave her a raise, grateful for Dina's knack for finding capable helpers. Sitting beside Aluka's bed, I asked, "Do you regret it?" Still feverish, she looked at me puzzled. "Regret what?" Feeling like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, I pressed on. "If you hadn't switched identities that day, Killua would have been the one hurt. Do you regret it?" Shock, disbelief, contemplation, and pain crossed Aluka's face. Finally, she wiped away her tears and replied, "If it had been Killua, he would be even sadder, right? So, I have no regrets." She then embraced me, and I held her close, reassured that Aluka would be okay. I stayed at the store for only one night before heading to Lebanon for work, then returned home without delay. My father and grandfather had made some adjustments to my training plan, but it remained largely intact. Killua, still recovering, began training earnestly, his earlier defiance subdued. During the day, I supervised Killua's training, correcting his form and sharing valuable combat experience. After a crushing defeat, he became more disciplined. Interestingly, pushing someone when they feel they can't go on often yields the best results. At night, Killua would rest or continue training, while I revised the next day's plan based on his progress. This routine continued until the 12th night when I encountered Kurt. I had remembered that Aluka asked me to retrieve something from her room. Upon entering, I saw a kimono doll by the wall. Even I almost called out Aluka upon seeing it. The doll looked up and said, "I'm not Aluka. It's not my mother's fault she was born in Meteor City, but the pain caused is undeniable." I sighed, considering a career change to doll taming, and approached the doll. "Brother knows you're not Aluka, you're Kurt." At just 3 years old, Kurt's stoicism rivaled mine. I wanted to express my frustration, but the perpetrators who hurt Aluka had already been dealt with. Kurt stared at me and repeated, "I am not Aluka." "Sorry," I replied. "My father and grandfather prioritize Killua, my mother and I focus on Aluka. Miki has become a reclusive gamer. What can we do for Kurt?" Fortunately, the little guy glared at me briefly, took my hand, stood up, then walked away. With a deep sigh, I proceeded to find what Aluka had requested. Our family dynamics could easily fill a 200-episode soap opera. I should check on Miki later. Miki continued to ignore me, perhaps realizing that he could rely only on himself. I began bringing Killua's training plans to his room, where he would game while I worked. Sometimes, I'd fall asleep at his desk, too tired to return to my room. This hectic routine persisted for nearly 4 months. In the midst of it, Menki unexpectedly visited the store to sample my cooking, prompting me to delegate Killua's training to her. Chapter 18. Grandpa, let's go back to the store to entertain her. Menki and I share similar views on food, no matter how delicious, just eat it. However, when it comes to cooking, Menki prefers exploring new and unknown ingredients, while I favor home-style dishes. It took a week to settle everything, but I managed to bring Aluka's belongings back to the store. After that, I stayed home for 3 months, dedicating all my energy to training Killua. Previously, my father, grandfather, and I agreed that Killua should learn Nen after turning 14. Nen is essentially a person's life energy. Ordinary people lose a small amount daily, but through the technique of Ten, which retains aura within the body, one can strengthen and maintain youthfulness. However, this is based solely on using Ten without Ren or Hatsu. The average human lifespan in this world is about 50 years. According to a conversation between Netero and my grandfather, the average lifespan of hunters registered with the Hunter Association is 40 years. Therefore, when my children learn Nen, the first technique they master is Zetsu. This decision isn't solely because we're an assassin family, it's primarily because our family's lives are paramount. As the next head of the family, Killua is cherished by his father and grandfather, so it's natural to wait until his body matures to minimize Nen's impact. Despite our discussions, I know that in the original work, Killua learns Nen at 12. I can't prevent this, I can only facilitate it. Should I be grateful that the original story was written for a 12-year-old and not someone younger? What pulled me out of my intense training was the news of Mr. Barrett's passing. I purchased this coffee shop in 1989, it's been 6 years now. I avoided using family resources, so Mr. Barrett assisted me significantly with legal and tax matters during this time. I understand his help wasn't personal but for the coffee shop's sake. Nonetheless, I benefited from it, so his original intentions don't concern me. The fact remains, I received help. On this early winter day, I left Dina to manage the store and took the children to the cemetery. Aluka was bundled in the coat I bought her, with only her face visible. Mizenlin had just overcome some troubles, and although the research yielded no results, he contributed some special secret medicine. Now, Aluka's physical condition has improved, and her complexion has gained some color. Colleen has become increasingly composed. Last year, I softened and provided her with a milder formula to enhance her physical fitness, along with a corresponding training method. She trains diligently, and her physique is surprisingly suitable. It seems she could reach Menki's current level in another 5 or 6 years. Interestingly, Colleen's training also attracted Aluka's new friend, a boy named Andili, Dina's suitor's cousin. When I asked why he wanted to train with Colleen, he replied that he wanted to protect Aluka. Naturally, I softened again. Mr. Barrett's grave was beside 2 others. I watched Colleen open the thermos, taking out the coffee and snacks she brought, placing them before the grave. Aluka, who had been leaning silently against me, suddenly asked, "Sister, what is death?" Given Aluka has been a Zoldyck since she was 5, she wouldn't accept a simple answer like breathing and heartbeat stop. I contemplated several responses but ultimately sighed and said, "I don't know." Then Aluka looked up at me and said, "Ellie will die in the future, too." Andili exclaimed, "No." I ignored him and replied calmly, "Yes, everyone will die eventually. Ellie will, and so will I. No one knows what happens after death. Perhaps it's not just the end of life but also a new beginning. But I hope that in this life, you visit many places you wish to see, taste various delicious foods, meet diverse and interesting people, and do everything you desire. That way, when facing death, you can welcome a new beginning with hope and no regrets." Looking at Mr. Barrett's tombstone, for some reason, I smiled. "Remember, after I die, I'll be buried here. I'll leave that responsibility to you." Since hearing Aluka doesn't regret it, I no longer treated her as a child. Now, when I address her as you or I instead of sister or Ellie, it signifies seriousness, and I hope she listens attentively. She simply responded, "Maybe I won't live to see that day." I genuinely laughed, patted her head, and turned to walk home. "As long as I live, I won't let you die before me." Before everything, January 12, 1996, Spider. If zodiac signs existed in this world, the spider would undoubtedly be one. Just a few days after the new year, Krilo placed an order for 20 servings each of blueberry pie and cheesecake. Dina didn't refuse immediately, considering he was a regular customer, but she called me. I hadn't returned to the store during the new year since it's a Zoldyck family tradition to celebrate together. So, I took this opportunity to check on Aluka. During our last visit to the grave, I left new training content for Colleen and Andy and wanted to see how it was progressing. At the scheduled time, the person who came to pick up the goods wasn't Krilo but a blue-haired woman I'd never seen before. Maki, one of the 2 most challenging members of the Phantom Troupe, besides Krilo. My nail disguise, combined with years of practicing a stoic expression, is impeccable. I can deceive Krilo, my father, grandfather, and everyone in my family, but perhaps not Pakinota and Maki. One can read memories, the other possesses extraordinary intuition. They might uncover my secret. Although this world has a self-correcting mechanism, even if they discover that Illumi's nail equals Sophie, it might not be catastrophic. Still, it's best not to take unnecessary risks. If the world were destroyed due to my negligence or pride, no amount of effort could reverse it. So, upon seeing Maki, I found an excuse to sneak upstairs, signaling Aluka to follow. Maki's abilities shouldn't pose a significant threat to her. Aluka is nearly an ordinary girl now, but caution is always wise. Maki seemed to glance in my direction, but Dina began promoting our special package with a smile. Seeing Maki's attention diverted by the caramel macchiato and black forest cake, I sighed in relief. It seems I evaded detection. Krilo, just wait for me. Before I could decide on the appropriate course of action, though it's futile to ponder, given my intelligence, defeating Krilo would be an apocalyptic feat. No, it must be the author's madness. Krilo placed a second order. This time, he changed 2 flavors but still wanted 20 servings each. Conveniently, my father was more involved at work, so he took Killua to oversee the process. It's acceptable for me to return to the store to assist. Besides, I'm curious to see who will pick up the goods this time. After completing her tasks, Dina stared at the order book, muttering, "What exactly does Mr. Krilo do? Is he hosting a party?" I remained silent, thinking that the Phantom Troupe might be gathering this year. Considering the original work, 40 servings aren't excessive. Speaking of which, in the fanfictions I've read, the female members of the troupe seem to have a fatal attraction to cooking. No, it's only April now, and the troupe appears to gather in July. Then who are these 40 servings for? I speculated that Krilo might possess a Nen ability to preserve food. He must have one. It's better not to overthink. I shook my head and stood up, but suddenly, a more terrifying thought struck me, causing me to freeze momentarily. If Krilo places another order in July, how many servings will he request? Should I start stockpiling raw materials now? This time, the man who came to pick up the goods was a lethargic and disheveled individual, wearing a kimono, a long sword at his waist, his hair tied in a high braid, and a piece of grass in his mouth. Nobunaga, the troupe's samurai roleplayer. This guy doesn't possess the challenging abilities of Maki or Pakinoda. Chapter 19, middle dot before everything middle dot August 24, 1997. Nobunaga's demeanor was surprisingly affable, especially with the children. Colleen and Aluka were comfortable around him, but it was Andili who was utterly captivated, lying on the table, eyes shining as he listened to Nobunaga's tales. If this child were to learn Nen, he'd likely be an enhancer. Colleen and Aluka are more challenging to categorize. Colleen is certainly not an enhancer, and both girls probably aren't transmuters. As for the other categories, I can't determine their affinities with my current knowledge. Honestly, I should be an enhancer myself. Perhaps that's why my combat abilities are so lacking. The delivery concluded successfully, accompanied by a set of tableware and red bean daifuku. I'm unsure if Nobunaga has any Japanese heritage, assuming such a place exists in this world, but his tastes align with his attire. Watching him depart, carrying a large box with a satisfied stride, I picked up the travel bag I'd packed earlier and bid farewell to Dina and the others. It was time to return and plan my schedule, ensuring some free time in July. However, I quickly realized that plans often can't keep up with unexpected changes. I meticulously organized my schedule, freeing up several days in July. Just as I was preparing to work as a pastry chef, my father approached me. "Illumi, there's a task at home that requires your assistance." This implied the job was challenging or dangerous enough to need 2 people, but not so severe as to necessitate my grandfather's involvement, or perhaps it required my disguise skills. Accepting that Krilo might have to forego his cake, I inquired, "Who's the target?" My father responded casually, "Finks, the 8th member of the Phantom Troupe." What a lovely day we're having. This particular troupe member was adept at evading detection. Our family's intelligence network couldn't locate him. He likely possessed Nen abilities. Fortunately, while some members excel at concealment, others lack any concept of secrecy. We decided to exploit the troops gathering to pinpoint our target. This time, we observed nearly the entire troop, excluding Shizuku and Hisaka. Before commencing the operation, my father instructed me to use Zetsu to track them individually, avoid detection, and wait for the 8th member to be alone before making a move. In truth, my father's abilities aren't suited for tracking, especially against the troop. Even with Zetsu, he'd likely be discovered. Thus, the tracking responsibility fell to me. Over several days, I altered my appearance multiple times, controlled over 10 individuals and 2 birds, and meticulously documented the troops' activities. I relayed only observed facts to my father, avoiding personal interpretations to prevent revealing knowledge I shouldn't possess. For instance, the insight that Kurlo could steal Nen abilities was deduced by my father based on my reports. This time, the troop didn't cause a significant commotion and disbanded swiftly. Unfortunately, Kurlo and Finks traveled together. My father decided to act but sent me away beforehand. I changed my appearance and headed to a nearby town to purchase souvenirs, all while remotely monitoring the crows I'd stationed near the anticipated battleground. My manipulation-type Nen ability is quite complex when controlling humans. Each nail can command only one action. However, with birds and small mammals, I can issue simple commands and even perceive their surroundings through their senses, which is quite advantageous for our line of work. Observing through a crow's eyes, I saw my father employ his high-altitude bombing technique. Kurlo noticed and retreated. Finks was struck but managed to evade. Confirmed, the target is deceased. Kurlo retrieved his book. My father stood and spoke. Kurlo responded. They seemed to be engaging in a contest of sorts. Ah, the bird was killed. My father returned safely, and judging by his expression, Kurlo remained unharmed. During our journey home, he remained silent. When I inquired, he simply remarked, "That was an unpleasant task," and gave me a peculiar look. Upon our return, he gathered the 4 children and solemnly warned us, avoid any involvement with the troop. Killua pouted but acquiesced under my stern gaze. Miki responded nonchalantly, as everyone knew he rarely ventured out. Kurt agreed without expression. I observed my siblings and nodded in agreement. After the others dispersed, I approached my father. "Dad, I have a question regarding the avoid the troop directive." He glared at me. "What is it?" "The troop's leader has been a patron of my cafe for 6 years and is now a regular customer. I took leave in January and April to prepare cakes for him." I watched as my father's expression shifted. Kurlo and Aluka have developed a friendly rapport as well. I refer to him as Kurlo, but the Kurlo I've encountered recently isn't the same as the one I know. Had he not been raised in Meteor City, perhaps he would genuinely be the Kurlo from the cafe, always smiling, knowledgeable, approachable, occasionally mischievous. Deceived by this facade, I gradually lowered my guard and revealed my true self to him. Subconsciously, I began to perceive him as non-threatening. Then I witnessed the true leader of the Phantom Troop. Utterly rational, impeccably composed, and mercilessly cruel. Observing him in this light rekindled the fear I experienced when reading the original work. If it came down to it, Kurlo possesses countless methods to eliminate me. My life isn't solely mine to control, and my secrets impact more than just myself. So why should I let my guard down around him? Perhaps it's best if we never cross paths again. Chapter 20. I applied eyeshadow and mascara, wouldn't want the bride to shed black tears. Brian's family wasn't lacking financially, so I gifted her a necklace adorned with rippling stones, a subtle way to show she had someone supporting her. This time, Brian's family relocated to another continent, and he asked Andy if he wanted to join them. However, the child was resolute about staying with Ellie. Good decision. I would have been furious if he had left. Afterwards, I summoned the 3 children to my room and informed them that with Dina's departure, the store would be entrusted to Colleen. Upon hearing this, Colleen looked up in surprise. I glanced at her and continued. Write down your bank account number here. Colleen, you're familiar with our regular suppliers. From now on, your monthly salary will be increased to 40,000 yen, including food and accommodation, with 7 days of annual leave. You'll oversee all store matters. Ellie and Andy must also follow your instructions. Ellie and Andy agreed nonchalantly and left upon realizing I had nothing more to add. Colleen remained, staring at me. Sister Sophie, are you truly leaving the store to me? I smiled and began packing my luggage. Of course. Who else would I entrust it to? There was a prolonged silence. If I hadn't sensed her presence, I would have thought she'd left. When I turned around, I saw her looking up with determination. Wikipedia. Sister Sophie, I have something to tell you. Go ahead, I replied, already contemplating which card to aim for next time I entered Greed Island. Colleen paused, then continued, My name isn't Colleen. I chuckled. I know. When I first arrived, you hesitated for a couple of seconds when someone called you. Even a fool would realize it's a pseudonym. She took a deep breath and said, My real name is Kurapika, and I'm an orphan of the Kortaa clan. Also, I'm actually a boy. A thunderbolt seemed to strike on a clear day. I froze, unable to move. Kurapika lowered his head and continued, Sister Sophie, you might have heard about the Kortaa clan. I'm deeply grateful for your trust and haven't forgotten your teachings. I've thought it through, and I still can't let go. The eyes of my people await my retrieval. I see those empty eye sockets in my dreams. As he spoke, he looked up and saw my expression, then stepped back, bumping into the door. The sound jolted me back to reality. I rubbed my face, trying to control my emotions, and mustered all my composure. Do you know what I'm thinking right now? I'm thinking, thank goodness there's enough space in the store so you and Ellie didn't have to share a room. Kurapika gave a helpless smile, then immediately turned serious. Sister Sophie, what's your decision? I forced a smile. Haven't you finished speaking yet? Continue. This time, he didn't lower his head. Instead, he carefully observed my expression and said, You mentioned before that my training has reached a bottleneck, and the next step is to gain practical experience. So, while I'm grateful for your trust, I can't stay in the store much longer. I had been gripping a shirt tightly, and it was now wrinkled. I tossed it onto the bed, sat down, and sighed. My mind was in turmoil. As I tried to gather my thoughts, I asked, Who else knows your true identity? Kurapika thought for a moment and answered confidently, No one else knows, except you. Good. Do Ellie and Andy know you're a boy? He shook his head. I began to seriously question my own vigilance. 3 years, and I hadn't noticed. What kind of Zoldyck am I? Are you planning to tell anyone else? He immediately shook his head. I don't intend to tell anyone else, including Ellie and Andy. This is my personal matter, there's no need to involve them. Even better. When do you plan to leave? He lowered his head again. I noticed that he avoided eye contact when he felt apologetic. I'll stay for 1 more week at most. All right, I sighed. I'll stay for another week. During this time, organize the store's affairs and teach Ellie or Andy whatever you can. If they can't grasp something, let me know. Also, inform me if you need anything, don't hesitate, even if it's for the sake of your people. Seeing tears welling up in his eyes, I quickly waved him away. I consider myself truly fortunate. 7 days later, Ellie, Andy, and I stood outside the store to see Kurapika off. Ellie and Andy were unaware of his true identity, so I prepared unisex clothing for him, along with the dual swords he requested. What he didn't ask for was a set of Kortaa attire, which I had custom-made based on the style from the original work and sent to him. When Kurapika saw the outfit for the first time, he buried his face in it for a long time before looking up, his face showing signs of emotion. After seeing Kurapika off, I picked up my travel bag and bid farewell to Ellie and Andy. The store would be in their hands from now on. The two children were only 20 years old combined. Fortunately, Andy had been well trained, and Ellie's intelligence could handle the situation. Of course, I still worried, but what else could I do? After traveling some distance, I found a secluded spot, reverted to my Illumi appearance, and pursued Kurapika. I had previously tampered with the outfit, allowing me to catch up with him easily. I inserted a needle to make him sleep for 2 hours, then took out my phone and made the necessary exchanges. Upon waking, Kurapika would no longer remember the past 3 years. He would believe he had been studying and training in his tribe's original residence during that time. Simultaneously, I modified the memories of Ellie, Dina, Andy, and everyone else, erasing any recollection of Colleen's appearance, except for myself. Over the years, Colleen and Krilo had gotten along well. I often saw them sitting at the table, discussing books. He had even met Maki and Nobunaga. If I didn't erase his memory, what would happen when the plot reached Yorknu City? I'm truly fortunate that the world didn't start to unravel when Colleen first met Krilo. When I read the manga, I wondered about the kind of education Kurapika had received to be so proficient in both literature and martial arts. I never imagined. Leaving Kurapika in the arranged house, I knew rationally that I should return home promptly, but I just wanted to stand there and watch the white clouds drift by. 2 more years, Chapter 21. As for my second brother, I can probably guess why he did this. And my mother, if it was just training, it wouldn't matter how hard he hit her. But if he dared to strike my parents outside of training, I genuinely want to find someone to fight. Dad approved me bringing Killua home but asked me to stay for 10 days before leaving. His reason was to let me accompany my mother and Miki. I suspect Dad wanted me to cool off for a few days so I wouldn't be too harsh when finding Killua. After all, Killua is the designated head of the family, and I will have to obey his orders in the future. It's not ideal to let him be too afraid of me now or to make the relationship too strained. Bored at home, I called Wing and Menki. Wing had accepted a disciple and spoke about how obedient and hardworking his student was. Menki excitedly told me she was going to be an examiner. I knew this because, when I watched the original series, the sushi scene was one of the classic laughs. Then I received a call from Hisaka. There had been no news about Hisaka in the past year, and I was seriously worried he might have died somewhere. When I answered the phone, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this guy is still causing trouble in the world. Hisaka's voice on the phone was as unsettling as ever. Illumi, long time no see. Indeed, there has been no activity from you for a year. I was considering whether to adjust your VIP customer discount from 35% to 20%. Hey Tilda? Hisaka's face must have turned red on the other end of the line. I answered seriously, I was kidding. Illumi Tilda, if anyone is going to lie, it should be me Tilda. If you're deceived, the price will be 10 billion, depending on the situation, and we will provide you with a one-time hunting service after you're found out. Thank you for your patronage. Hisaka steamed buns, a specialty of the hunter world. I kept a straight face but laughed secretly. End of nonsense, back to the topic. What's the matter this time? Tilda. Hisaka's depressed voice came from the phone. It's very troublesome. I changed my sitting position to make myself more comfortable and said, tell me about it. You're the most troublesome one. No one in the whole hunter world can be as troublesome as you. I was completely embarrassed after listening to Hisaka's story. The trouble isn't that significant, but, to put it simply, a long time ago, Hisaka was looking for someone to fight when he ran into someone. For some reason, he not only failed to win the fight but also owed him a favor. When I asked him about the details, Hisaka avoided the question. The other party only asked him one thing for this favor: take care of his son. This son had been staying in a remote place, so Hisaka was content to treat him as non-existent. But this year, the boy decided to take the hunter exam. As I listened, my face started to contort awkwardly, and I asked cautiously, "Hisaka, is that person named Jing Freaks?" Illumi, how did you know? I held the phone and looked up at the ceiling. Speechless question to the heavens. Well, since I came to this world, I've dressed up as a girl myself, dressed up Miki, and seen Kurapika disguise himself. What is the original work? Ha 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 ha. This opportunity is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, so I leaned back, crossed my legs, and started to strategize. Hey, Hisaka, that kid is going to take the hunter exam. Can't you go with him? What if you've already passed the hunter exam, you can't take it again? Haha, that's no problem. I'm not a hunter. Well, I know this. I also know that someone was expelled from the hunter exam last year for assaulting the examiner. Last year, President Netero mentioned this as a joke when he was chatting with great-grandpa. In that case, just take the hunter exam. It seems like someone has wanted warrants from 3 countries. Besides, if you take the hunter exam, you'll definitely have a lot of fights, and the quality of your opponents may be higher than that of the heavens arena. Why do you think it's troublesome? You should be very happy, right? Well, Hisaka continued to be depressed on the other end of the phone, but Illumi, I'm worried that I'll go too far and accidentally kill that kid . I'm afraid it's not that easy. The protagonist's vitality is usually at the level of a cockroach. What's the point of my mission if he dies? Hisaka, that Jing Freaks is very strong, right? Based on genetics, the children of strong people won't be bad either. Just look at my family. Not necessarily, for example, Miki and Aluka, but Hisaka doesn't need to know this. But there is something strange. Hisaka, what did Jing Freaks tell you at that time? He told me to take care of his son if I see him and not to show any mercy. Hey, Illumi, I know a little bit about your family's education methods. Do you think he meant it literally? I can hear Hisaka's smug face even through the phone. Judging from the big boss Jing in the original work, it's probably the literal meaning. This proves a truth: being twisted is one thing, being scheming is another. Before I could figure out how to answer, Hisaka's voice rang out again. Come on Illumi, I'll hire you. Your job is to take the hunter exam, keep an eye on that kid and make sure he doesn't die, and assist me as needed. How about it? Are you ready to take the job now? I was so embarrassed that I couldn't express it in words. Yes, I'm grateful for your patronage. I'll see you at the examination hall. After hanging up the phone, I once again asked the heavens in silence, is this what the sentence in the original work "I need a hunter's license for work" meant? No matter what, Hisaka has a lot of money anyway. Before everything, January 3, 1999, for whom the bell tolls. The last thing before signing up for the hunter exam was to call President Netero. Going to someone else's territory to capture my brother and bring him home could easily be seen as a challenge, so I should get their permission first. Of course, my family has always had a good relationship with the Hunter Association, but it was just a formality. Even if it was just a formality, I had to say hello. President Netero agreed readily and looked very happy. Yes, how can you not be happy when there's a good show to watch? There's the big boss Jing and President Netero. Now I begin to doubt whether such a weirdo appears in the enhancement category every 20 or 30 years. And will Gon be so cunning when he grows up? While I was leisurely preparing, I heard the news on TV. Following the eruption of Timaka volcano 4 days ago, Suwa volcano erupted again at 10:34 today after 300 years of silence. The loss of life and property is currently unpredictable. Researchers believe. The cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the ground. At that moment, it felt like falling into an ice cellar. It has begun. The destruction of the world has begun. What did I do wrong? Why did this happen? Unable to think, I took out nails and stabbed them into my arm. When the nails ran out, my numb brain gradually started to function again. We can talk about summarizing experience and holding people accountable later. The most important thing now is to control the situation and not let it get worse. The two managers said that the 32 volcanoes located at the edge of the plates will erupt one after another when the world is destroyed, with an interval of about 5 days. After 10 volcanoes have erupted, it will be impossible to stop them. We can only wait for large-scale plate movement to begin. When the real Illumi left, 4 volcanoes had already erupted. Excluding the 2 now, I still have about 20 days to recover. 20 days, those damn 20 days. Today is January 3rd, and the Hunter exam will start on January 7th. This takes away 4 days, and we have to take out 5 or 6 days as backup, leaving only 10 days. If we're unlucky, we may not even have 10 days. Time. What I lack most now is time. Is there any way to stop the eruption of the volcano belt? Even if it's only temporarily stopped? The answer is obvious: my triple equivalent exchange. What else can I get in exchange? I have exchanged memories before, so I can't do it again. Otherwise, it will affect my personality, which is a minor issue. If I become an idiot, that would be terrible. I have exchanged my physical fitness with Aluka before, so I can't do it again. I am weak enough now. If I exchange it again, I am afraid I won't be able to beat even Killua. Short break. You've made it this far, which means you're either really invested, or too lazy to hit pause lol. Either way, love you, let's keep going. Chapter 22. God knows how long the plot will last. It's impossible to play the role of a killer without any sense. To be honest, even if I used all available resources, it probably wouldn't last an hour. We're talking about the movement of the entire world's tectonic plates. Even Netero or Jing would struggle to stop a volcanic eruption. No matter. Feeling despondent, I took out my phone and sent a text message. What kind of exchange is needed to delay the world's destruction for a short period? As soon as I pressed send, my phone beeped. I assumed the conditions weren't met. Then I saw 2 large characters on the screen: soul. I know time is precious and shouldn't be wasted, but I was still taken aback for half a minute upon seeing this answer. A soul. Is this a Disney animation? I turned my head stiffly and looked around. There were no flowers or pink bubbles. Good, I was still in the Hunter world and hadn't accidentally traveled to the Little Mermaid. After all, what exactly is the soul? In both past and present lives, there are different views on the soul. Some believe it's the element of human life that governs perception and activities, existing independently after death. Others see it as all life phenomena produced by organisms composed of macromolecules like proteins, DNA, RNA, etc., existing according to the metabolism of life macromolecules, cells, tissues, organs, and the organism itself. Some differentiate between spirit and soul. The spirit refers to the non-material essence of life, including spiritual things without flesh and blood, while the soul refers to the inner non-material and invisible self, and the life of the flesh. In my previous life, the country where I lived traditionally divided the soul into 2 parts, soul and spirit. The soul was responsible for the spirit, and the spirit was responsible for the body. There was also the saying of 3 souls and 7 spirits. But now, these theories are of no use to me at all. I realized how useless my knowledge was when I needed it. I was so upset that I gritted my teeth and continued to send text messages. What are the consequences of losing your soul? Will it result in immediate death or possession by dark forces? Reply: lose the chance of reincarnation. That's it? Just that? Unconvinced, I continued, are there any other direct or indirect consequences? Such as personality changes, shortened lifespan, decreased physical fitness, etc. I wrote a long list of questions, but the answer was just one concise word: no. Staring at the word no, I wasted another half a minute. After I reacted, I replied exchange as quickly as possible and sent it. Theoretically, the transaction was completed, and my soul had said goodbye to me. I felt it for a while and found nothing unusual. Instead, I found it a little amusing. It turns out that souls are so valuable. I should have known earlier. No, if I had known, I would have exchanged it for a Lucas physique or something else a few years ago. I'm a spendthrift. Mizzenlin's stock has fallen again. Indeed, if it's something that allows people to reincarnate, it should contain a lot of energy. If the energy of countless reincarnations is concentrated in 10 days, it should have no problem affecting the entire world. But to me, the soul is just expendable. It's just an opportunity for reincarnation. I'm already busy in this life, so who would care about the next life? Using something like an appendix that can be used or not in exchange for 10 days of stability in this world, this deal is simply too cost-effective. To use a famous saying from my previous life, no matter how big the flood is behind me. After exchanging my soul for 10 days of buffer time, I felt much better. I was indeed still immature. In my previous life, my father once advised me to stay calm when faced with something unexpected, and stay calm when faced with something without reason. Now I can barely do the latter, but I think I have no hope of doing the former. Although it only lasted 10 days, the plate movement was suppressed to the minimum during this period, and no volcano would erupt. If I can solve the problem within these 10 days, nothing will happen afterward. And after calming down, I had an idea. If this idea is correct, then the problem can be solved in the first few days of the Hunter exam. There was still some time before departure, and I was no longer in a leisurely mood. I connected to the intelligence network at home and started to confirm the status of the plot characters. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio's social security cards all showed alive. Killua had arrived in Saba City early and was frequenting candy stores. Hisako was also fine. Very good. Be fully prepared and set off. I have waited 12 years for this moment. Plot, here I come. Before everything. January 7, 1999. Finally begins. hunterxhunter.wikia.com. To prevent my family from thinking I was crazy, I postponed the time of disguise until the day before the exam. What happened to Illumi in the original work? He could have disguised himself perfectly, but he insisted on making himself into a Frankenstein. Could it be that he didn't study the art of disguise in depth? That shouldn't be the case, ha 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 ha. How could the real Illumi not be able to do something that even I can do? I was inserting nails in front of the mirror while recalling the past, trying to make it look the same as the original, including the position of the nails. After inserting each nail, I found that in addition to the appearance being consistent with the original, these nails seemed to have the effect of hair care. I was so upset. What on earth was the original Illumi thinking? A man still cares about his hair. The steak was okay, but just okay. Minky was the examiner this year, but she provided such inferior food to the examinees. Also, I don't like steak cooked medium rare. Whatever, it's free stuff. When we got to the underground passage, I was still number 301, so it was unlikely that the candidate before me had a problem. I asked Miki to install microcircuits in the nails from the right eye to the right ear. With my telekinesis, it can take pictures, store, query, and connect to the intelligence network at home. Miki was muttering as he was modifying it, questioning why there was such a big show for a Hunter exam. It's not like I haven't passed it before. Yes, isn't it a question of the fate of the world? Of course, I can't say this to him, but it doesn't mean I can't use my brother's privilege to knock him on the head. As the nails clicked, I took photos of the candidates one by one. Halfway through, Dongba number 16 glanced at me, and I considered for a second whether to make some saliva like in the original comics, but then I decided not to, it was too disgusting. Anyway, the animated version didn't have this detail. Killua had arrived, holding the skateboard I gave him and Aluka, looking around with a bored expression, and occasionally asking Damba for a can of juice with added ingredients. I know this is from the original work, but it still makes me cringe when I see it with my own eyes. He's so confident that he's arrogant. Is this kid really raised by a killer? But he is truly his father's son. Then am I like my mother? I said I am not the real Illumi, idiot. Hisoka had also arrived early and was stacking playing cards in a corner with a bored look on his face. I sent out a little thought signal, and sure enough, he looked in my direction, and then his hand shook, causing the nearly stacked tower of cards to fall to the ground with a clatter. I looked at him in confusion and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Hisoka's mouth twitched. "Illumi, what kind of image is that?" He deliberately moved the nails on his face, making a clicking sound. "Don't you think my image is both practical and artistic?" Hisoka's eyes were twitching at this moment. He changed the subject and glanced at Killua. "Is that your brother?" I overcame the obstacle of the nail and rolled my eyes. Yes. Chapter 23. I focused on the examinees whose faces appeared in the original work. Number 16, Tunpa, an unstable factor. Although the exam process should follow the original story, precautions are still necessary. Number 294, Hanzo, not bad, he was a good kid in the original story, so I'll skip him for now. Number 187, Nicholas. Arrogant. It's true that he focuses on intelligence, but bringing a laptop to the hunter exam. Where did this fool come from? He doesn't even know how to handle high-tech equipment. If he wants to cheat, he should do it like me. The three Amori brothers. Are these three here to make people laugh? While others weren't paying attention, I used my telepathy to do something. Except for me and Hisoka, no one else in this year's exams could use telepathy, so I wasn't afraid of being discovered. Hisoka raised his eyebrows at me, and I glared back at him. TSK, his eyes became smaller after the disguise, making it really inconvenient to glare at him. Since I have taken 200 million from him, I have to do my job well. Besides, I will need it later. Then, they came. Number 403, Leorio, number 404, Kurapika, number 405, Gon. I cared about the three main characters, especially Kurapika and Gon, but now my focus is completely on the person behind them. Number 406, a number that shouldn't exist, a person who shouldn't exist. A time traveler. She was a girl, about 18 or 19 years old, with black hair and black eyes, and she was very pretty. However, my Aluka will be prettier than her when she grows up. Am I acting like a sister complex? I didn't want her to notice that I was paying attention to her, so I glanced at her and then turned to look at the three protagonists. Leorio's image is better than in the comics and closer to the animated version. He looks pretty good. He's a good kid. Let's help him if we have the chance in the future. Gon has the image of a lively boy, a passionate young man, and the protagonist of a comic book. Because of Killua, I took a few more glances at him and found that this Gon is the comic version. His eyes are clear and firm, but without that kind of almost ignorant innocence. He just looks at the world out of pure curiosity and doesn't care much about right and wrong, good and evil. Because he is pure, he is strong. The sea is vast because it can accommodate all rivers. The cliff is strong because it has no obstacles. Very good, so I can temporarily entrust Killua to you. I know the original work, but I still want to see with my own eyes the person who will be the most important to Killua in the future. I am very angry that this little brat Killua stabbed his mother and Miki, but he is still my brother after all. If anyone dares to bully my brother, I will let them experience the art of torture passed down from generation to generation in the Zoldyck family. As for Kurapika, he did not take off his disguise when he left the store. This was the first time I saw his true appearance. The kid had his hair cut short, and although he was still a little delicate, he could not be easily mistaken for a girl. Well. The girl seemed to notice something and looked towards me. I looked away and controlled the nails to start clicking. I felt her eyes linger on me for a moment, probably because she recognized me. It happened that Hisako was cutting someone's hands over there, effectively attracting everyone's attention. Then it was time to run. I was running with the crowd and could faintly hear the laughter of the 4, no, now 5, people behind me. That girl is a bit like Gon, both are so innocently curious. When Tumpa came to offer her juice with additives, she refused, but she didn't say anything harsh to him. Her attitude towards Leorio was the same as her attitude towards Kurapika and Gon. She's a good kid. I know what to do. Before everything. January 7, 1999. Apologies are useless. As the saying goes, life is unpredictable. Just now I thought that Gon was in the comic version, and then the animation version happened. The 5-member team blew up the wall. They used their telekinesis to protect themselves in time, so they didn't even get dust on them. But I was still angry. You little brat, you dare to use ridiculous explosives? Have you forgotten how you treated your second brother when you left home? I'll leave the question of whether it's the manga version or the anime version aside for now and think about it when I have time. But I remember that when the original work reached Greed Island, the relationship between Killua and Miki didn't seem that bad. Don't tell me that Killua's insincere apology took effect. I'm afraid I'll burst out laughing. Seeing the girl worriedly pulling up Leorio, who had fallen headfirst, to check if he was injured, I could only sigh inwardly. She is a good kid. Then, we arrived at the Lost Lemmy wetlands. Just like the original, a human-faced monkey appeared to deceive people. Before we could see what was going on, Hisako threw his poker cards over. Indeed, first he had to wait for the exam to start, and then he had to run tediously. With his personality, it was not easy for him to not run away for such a long time. Later, Hisako will discover Gon's value here, and I have also decided to contact the time traveler here. Gon and Killua had already run to the front, and the time traveler slowed down her pace to accompany Kurapika and Leorio, probably because she was afraid that they would face Hisako. I used Zetsu and ran to their side not too far away, listening to their conversation with my ears pricked up. "Chihiro, you're amazing," Leorio said in a loud voice, panting. The voice of the time traveler, "Don't talk, concentrate on regulating your breathing, we have to get through this together." Just now, Gon told us to run forward. Leorio didn't listen to her. "You go first." "No." This was the voice of Chihiro and Kurapika. Chihiro continued, "If I leave my companions behind, I won't be able to go home." "Excuse me, Miss Chihiro, where are you from?" Kurapika's voice. The time traveler replied with a smile. "Not many people know my hometown. The place I come from is called China." There was a momentary confusion in my steps. It was this name, a name that was covered by common sense in the hunter world. If I could choose, I would never give up this name. There was no extra time for me to be moved. I flicked my fingers and produced a small stone, attracting Chihiro's attention. I raised my hand and, like Biscuit in the original work, used my telekinesis to form a word on my fingertips. Hua in Chinese. The girl's eyes widened instantly, and she said to Kurapika and Leorio, who were bickering next to her, "I'll go over there and take a look, you go first," and ran towards me. Behind her, Leorio shouted, "Be careful." Kurapika's reply floated faintly, as if to say that she was strong and nothing would happen. Very good. I took her away from the group and ran deeper into the fog. After making sure there were no living creatures within 500 meters, I stopped in an open area and turned around to look at her quietly. The girl was panting a little, not because of fatigue, but more because of excitement. I raised my hand, pulled out the nail in my left ear that served as a key, and restored Illumi's face. The girl's eyes widened a little, A flash of surprise passed across her face, and then returned to anticipation. I opened my mouth and asked, "Are you from the other world as well?" It was an undisguised joy. She opened her mouth, closed it, and finally just nodded. "I've forgotten a lot of things." I looked at her and said quietly, "I'm dead, and I've become Illumi here. I've forgotten a lot of things from my past life." "Your name is Chihiro, right?" "I've forgotten my name, too. If you hadn't mentioned it just now, I wouldn't even be able to remember where I came from." I kept looking at her while I was talking, watching her expression change from shock to sympathy and pity. She looked at me with that look and whispered, "I'm sorry." "What are you sorry for? It's not your fault. Can you tell me a little more about yourself? Maybe I can remember something." Before I knew it, the words had already come out. She pursed her lips, looked straight at me, and said in a brisk and firm voice, "I came on August 30th, 2008, not long after the Olympic Games ended." "When did you come? Did you watch the Olympic Games, the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games?" Seeing me shaking my head, she smiled. "The opening ceremony was really beautiful. After watching the live broadcast, I downloaded the video online. I can take you back. Let's go back together and watch it together, okay?" Her eyes were clear, and she had an encouraging smile on her face. She really believed that we could go back together and watch the Olympics together. After a moment of silence, I held out my hand. Chapter 24. She smiled brightly, took my hand, and gave it a shake before pulling me back. "Let's hurry back. We still need to reach the second examination site. You have things to do for the hunter exam, right?" Her voice abruptly ceased as she stared in disbelief at the bloodied hand protruding from her chest. My hand. It must have been excruciating. If it were Grandpa, he could kill someone without them even realizing it. My skills haven't reached that level yet. Feeling utterly drained, I withdrew my hand and cradled her limp body, kneeling on the ground. Gazing into her unfocused eyes, I whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm here with a mission. I have to play the role of Illumi. The plot cannot be altered, otherwise, the world will face destruction. Volcanoes worldwide will erupt, tectonic plates will shift, earthquakes, tsunamis, extreme cold, famine, everything will perish. I'm sorry I had to kill you." She could no longer hear me. Things had been proceeding smoothly, so I allowed myself 2 minutes of self-reproach before I had to rise, run, catch up with the group, and continue the hunter exam. From the outset, I had been preparing for this. Time travelers often possess various abilities, some even defying this world's rules, like absolute defense or time-stopping powers found in fan fiction. Chihiro understood Nen. She could perceive the words I projected with it and knew to maintain Zetsu constantly. She was dangerous. Who knew what Nen ability she possessed? Perhaps something formidable like damage reflection. So, I separated her from the group, removed the nails, and revealed Illumi's face. One of the three beauties was more approachable than the blue-haired one, and as a time traveler, no matter how gentle and humble she appeared, she still harbored the thought, "I am the protagonist." Sure enough, she reacted to this face. Then I told her I was also a time traveler, emphasized that I had forgotten many things, and played the sympathy card to lower her guard. All for the final strike, a fatal blow from behind. She had Nen and knew how to use Zetsu, but her Nen wasn't self-taught, it wasn't earned through blood and experience. She lacked combat experience. If it had been someone else, my sneak attack might have failed. My performance had flaws. I claimed to be a time traveler but didn't react upon scene number 406 in the underground passage. But this girl, Chihiro, was too sincere and trusting. After just a few words, she believed me completely and showed me kindness without reservation. Maybe she could have truly taken me back. But even if I returned with her, what would happen? I can't even remember my previous life's name. Perhaps she didn't have to die, Maybe if I had explained the gravity of the situation, she would have cooperated. But I didn't dare. I couldn't risk it. What's the point of apologizing to a corpse? If I ever complete my mission, I'll return this life to her. In 1 minute and 30 seconds, I took a deep breath and hastily dug a hole to bury her body. After marking the spot, I used the locator data from Hanzo in the underground passage to rejoin the team. I allowed myself only 2 minutes, there was no time to spare. Illumi Zoldyck is despicable, shameless, and insane. I timed it precisely, and shortly after I caught up with the group, xszj appeared. Just like in the original, there was blood on his temples, but he seemed to be in a good mood, indicating that I had acted in time. I was concerned that xszj might notice the absence of other running sounds in the background, but his good mood seemed to make him overlook it. Gon and Kurapika arrived 10 minutes before the second exam. Their lines were nearly identical to the original. Then Gon asked, "Where's Sister Chihiro?" After searching for Chihiro without success, they finally accepted that she had failed the exam. Unlike Leorio, they believed Chihiro's life wasn't in danger, so they didn't return to look for her. Besides, the second exam was about to commence. The second test involved cooking. The Buara segment mirrored the original, anyone who brought back the pig passed. Although Buara is known as a gourmet hunter, his specialty lies in consuming vast quantities of food quickly, and his taste buds aren't particularly refined. While not all candidates excel at cooking, most can manage barbecuing, which is crucial for passing the exam. Everyone gave their best effort, so it wasn't surprising that all passed. Menki's segment was more challenging. She's quite particular and had previously criticized my desserts. However, her skills match her temperament. I can make sushi, but first, I lack confidence in satisfying Menki's standards, second, I don't have the proper ingredients, and third, most importantly, I can't alter the plot. So, I made 2 rice balls to satiate my hunger and watched the proceedings. I considered recording this segment as a keepsake but noticed a hidden camera on the ceiling. I decided against it, knowing that such amusing content is typically uploaded to the Hunter website post-exam. Except for that year's candidates, everyone can enjoy it freely. I'll just use Sophie's Hunter license to download it. Eventually, all candidates failed, Chairman Netero appeared, the boiled egg test ensued, followed by the airship journey. Everything proceeded according to the original, thank goodness. Utilizing Zetsu, I concealed myself and observed Gon and Killua conversing quietly. "Killua, where are your father and mother? They should still be alive. Right? The next head of the family still has this demeanor, how dare they die? What do they do? Killing machines. Well, the killing machines who hold you, take you out to play, fly kites with you, and celebrate your birthday are so terrifying. If I obtain the Hunter license, the first thing I'll do is capture my family. I'm going to make a fortune. What about Aluka? Do you plan to capture her too? And Killua, do you think your family will let you go just because you have a Hunter license? Grandpa, great-grandpa, dad, mom, all have one, you're just unaware. So, even if you're fortunate enough to capture someone in your family, you won't gain any profit. I understand that Killua's words are merely rebellious talk from a child, but I should be angry. If he had said such things during training, I would have subjected him to at least 10 consecutive days of rigorous training until he couldn't even scream. But now, aside from a bit of laughter and curiosity, I feel nothing. If I were to express confusion, I'd say it's about whether this is the anime or manga version. It seems like a blend of both. Gon and his friends blew up the wall, but Anita didn't appear. Chairman Netero emerged from nowhere, laughing as he hooked 2 little brats. Before the game began, he glanced at me casually. "All right, I'll retreat." I contemplated seeking out xszj, but decided against it. I sat by a window, watching the night gradually brighten. Anyway, missing a night's sleep won't affect me much. The third test was the Trick Tower. I activated my N and found a solitary path to descend. The journey wasn't particularly noteworthy, the only significant aspect was that I no longer had to worry about mental attacks. Honestly, I was concerned about encountering the same mental attack that Leorio and the others faced in the first level of the anime. I know my own mental state, and I don't have much confidence in my stability, especially now. Drugs don't affect me, but there are still ways to induce hallucinations. But this level was surprisingly easy, so easy it made me want to laugh. Just as I anticipated, the hallucinations featured my relatives and friends from my previous life. However, contrary to my expectations, I wasn't deceived, not even for a moment. Standing in the stone corridor, I quietly observed the illusion before me. I recognized it as an illusion because the figures before me were misty human shapes outlined only by lines, mere silhouettes. I knew that this shadow represented my mother from my previous life. Chapter 25. This shadow is my respected teacher, but no one would take such a thing seriously, right? 2 years ago, I erased part of the memories of Kurapika, Krilo, and others. The price was the names and appearances of all my relatives and friends from my previous life. The only one in the shadow group who had content beyond the frame was Chihiro. She stood aside, smiling and holding out her hands to me, with a bloody hole in her chest. I thought I could face it as calmly as I did on the airship, but I could clearly feel the uncontrollable anger rising from the bottom of my heart. Who do you think I am? I have been in this world for 12 years. I have shed blood and made others bleed. I have killed hundreds of people, and I can even kill my past self bit by bit. I can also give up my favorite sister for my mission. Even if Hisoka lets me win, I can have an equal chance of winning and losing in a fight with him. I am Illumi Zoldyck. I have been through all kinds of things. How could I be defeated by my own hallucinations? No matter who you are not qualified to seduce me. Miki said that I made too much of a show in this exam. Indeed, with his 2,603 double insurance bombs, Killua only used 3 to blow a big hole in the underground passage. This time I brought out 40. In the dead silent corridor, the click sound of the switch was particularly pleasant. Throwing 2 bombs to the right front, the bombs passed through the cousin's shadow and Chihiro's body, fell to the ground, and exploded. The killer's ears, honed by training, can clearly distinguish the dull sound of a human body hitting stone, the subtle sound of bone breaking, and the low screams in the explosion. Not dead. I already had 2 more bombs in my hands, but I hesitated before throwing them. I took a deep breath, took another deep breath, put away the bombs, and continued to move forward. First, the family motto is not to kill people outside of work. There is no payment for killing him. Second, it is impossible to determine whether this person is a criminal or a hunter. Chairman Netero is very considerate. Don't be too arrogant on someone else's territory. Third, I have killed enough people, 1 less is better. It seemed that the illusion was controlled by someone, and it began to disappear after the explosion injured the person. The stairs leading to the next floor were right in front of him. He did not avoid or give way but walked straight through the gradually dissipating shadows. It's time to let go, and to hold on to the memories of the past life. What this world needs is Illumi Zoldyck. Goodbye, that nameless otaku girl from my previous life. Just like the original, I was the second to reach the bottom of the tower. Hisoka was bored again, building a tower. When he saw me, his eyes widened a little, then squinted again. He pushed the tower down with 1 finger and waved the poker in his hand at me. Come and play the Joker card with me. It's boring tilde. Looking at his unchanged smile, the anger in my heart gradually subsided. I shook the nail on my face. Okay, but I want to sit over here. What are you doing here? Of course, you're waiting for Hanzo to come out so you can admire his twitching expression. Next is the anime plot, Battleship Island. Just like the original, you go treasure hunting and scare the 3 cannon fodder brothers. Among those fan fictions in my mind, there are some who contacted my family to salvage the treasure, but I think I'd better forget it. If it could be salvaged, Chairman Netero would have done it long ago. Because the original work mentioned it, I just slept in the same room with the monkey trainer for one night. Why does this sentence sound so ambiguous? TSK, I originally wanted to find Hisoka, he probably wouldn't mind reducing the pressure. So I took the opportunity when the hotel owner ran away and the candidates were in a mess to find him, but Hisoka was not interested. He didn't say so, but I'm not blind, I can still see whether he is interested or not. This guy now has a head full of green fruits. I think it can't be what I think, right? Hisoka, Gon is only 13 years old this year, please don't torture young children. So Hisoka pulled out, I didn't mean that. No? I looked at him with contempt, then why do you get excited when you fight? Hisoka glared back, that's different. But, Illumi, you have an expression. Can you tell I have an expression even though I have a nail stuck in my head? Hisoka, you should get glasses. Just like the original, the candidates were busy trying to launch the warships and escape. Hisoka and I did not get involved but just watched from the sidelines. We still have to take action at this time. After all, as the only two candidates who know how to use Nen, we still have responsibilities. Especially me, I heard from Chairman Netero that he plans to let me take care of these children as a half-examiner. At this time, people can't help but think that he must have known in advance that Jing's son Gon would come to take the exam, right? Hisoka went to rescue Gon, and I followed the original story and went to the cockpit. Kurapika had already fallen to the side, and suppressing my worry, I took the steering wheel and brought the warship to a safe area before I went to take care of his injuries. This child has lost weight. He used to have a round face, but now his chin is pointed. After all, he is still a child and doesn't know how to take care of himself. I took out the bandages I prepared in advance and bandaged him. I used enhancement Nen to heal his wounds out of concern. These kids, Killua, Kurapika, and Miki, are also worrying. It should be okay for Aluka to have Andre accompany him, right? I should go back and take a look after the exam. Seeing that it was getting brighter, there was nothing for me to do anymore, so I retreated and posed behind Hisoka as in the original work. I ran away while complaining silently, I specially went to learn ship driving for tonight, do I think it's easy for me? Before everything January 20th 1999 Final test. The fourth exam, Zevil Island. There were not many candidates left at this point, so I was extravagant for once. Except for Hisoka and myself, each candidate had a locator. I had planned to take down the examiner who was watching me after entering the exam room, but I found that no one was watching me. I don't know if it was Chairman Netero's arrangement, or if the candidates who can use Nen don't need to be watched. It's just right, I'll go watch Gon, but let me rest for 2 days first. I don't want to squat in the bushes and watch Gon cast a fishing rod for 2 days. The plot was carried out perfectly according to the animated version. He buried himself in the soil and used the remaining time to have a good rest. Finally, it's time for the final test. The first match was between Gon and Hanzo. Watching this match with a decided outcome, I have to admit that Gon's intuition was indeed strong. If Gon loses this game, he will have to face Badoro, Killua, and me in turn. Of course, he can't win against me, it will be very troublesome to face Killua, and compared with Hanzo and Badoro, regardless of their personalities, Hanzo is more likely to admit defeat, because Hanzo still has a chance later, while Badoro doesn't. But this way of winning is probably only Gon can play it. Only Gon, who is invincible in playing rock, paper, scissors, dares to bet on this round and can win this round. Killua and I, who have been trained as killers since childhood and put protecting ourselves first, can't do it. Then there was Hisoka versus Kurapika. Even though I had a lot of nails stuck in my face, I had the urge to twitch when I saw Hisoka hooking up with my Kurapika. Hanzo versus Badoro, Hisoka vs Badoro, there was no suspense. I was just curious about how Hisoka scared Badoro.